By ordinance divine.
Ad Astra Avis Sosk, and good afternoon to all our fellow travelers in the lands of Teyvat. Welcome everyone to the Genshin Impact SEA Carnival. I'm very excited to welcome all of you joining us here today. And of course, we have to introduce ourselves to start things off. My name is Stafa, also known as Aiden, if that's a bit too confusing, and I am joined by none other than Riku Cass today to bring you the SEA Carnival, which is of course sponsored by Genshin Impact, supported by Predator, It Lies Within, and brought to you by IO Esports.
Yeah, absolutely excited for today, right? The Genshin SEA Carnival is going to be absolutely exciting, especially if you've, gathered all of these amazing and talented creative travelers, and I'm excited to see what they bring to the table in the challenges that await them.
Indeed. I'm honestly very excited to be here. I think it's quite an honor because this is basically the first time something like this has been done, and the fact that we can be here together to bring it all to our audience and watching all over Southeast Asia from home is definitely an opportunity that I am glad to have been provided. So thank you very much to Hoyoverse and of course IO Esports for giving us the chance to be here, and of course for holding this entire event and allowing our fellow travelers to really show their stuff.
Yeah, I think this is going to be what we saw in the video previously, right? It's a trial. It's going to be a test for them, definitely, on their creativity, showcase their knowledge in Genshin Impact, especially as they're going to be doing some speed runs for domains, and especially when they encounter the challenges later, when they have to go to specific locations. But we're going to be talking about that later on as we see now, it's time to learn more about all of these amazing events here. Once you join the Discord of the Genshin Impact Tavern, just scan that QR code down below and you get to see fellow travelers and join in the fun.
If you guys aren't aware that the official Genshin Impact Events Discord actually exists, well, here's a little reminder for you guys and a very easy way for you guys to join the festivities, to learn about future events, and of course to chat with your fellow travelers, find out all sorts of things happening in the lands of Teyvat. So make sure, scan the QR code to join us in the Genshin Impact Tavern.
Yep, Sari, and speaking of channel stuff, we're also live in Teyvat Spotlight on Twitch, and as well as Teyvat Battles on YouTube, as well as IO Esports channels, and your channels, and our channels as well, Stafa.
Yeah, I think that's honestly really exciting to know. Hello everyone from my Twitch channel, hello everyone from Riku's Facebook channel as well. Thank you very much for joining us, and we hope that you guys will enjoy the festivities that are oncoming. So, let's talk a little bit about what the participants, our travelers today, are going to be going through as we explain to all of you guys at home the qualifier format for the Genshin Impact SEA Carnival.
Yeah, for the qualifier format, as you can see, for the Warriors Expedition, it is divided into two challenges: the domain challenges and the overworld exploration. So for the domain challenges, you have to clear basically a domain with the highest difficulty available. And after that, for overworld exploration, you guys have to travel together to certain locations in Teyvat and take a picture with the in-game camera. The maximum time limit to complete all of these challenges is 1 hour with a player requirement of 3 players. And for scoring, of course, there are a couple of, scoring factors, including overall fastest time clear, time taken to clear domains, and of course, there are bonus points as well. So there are certain rules where if you have no 5-star character, then you get bonus points. If you have no stamina reduction exploration talent in the party as well, you get bonus points for that. So it's a lot of these decision-making process for these teams, whether or not they want the bonus points or they're just gonna maximize and optimize their compositions,
Yeah, it definitely adds a degree of strategy to it, because in the end, the challenge objective is to make sure that all of these teams are able to complete a predetermined selected path of domain challenges, followed by a sprint challenge in which, like you mentioned earlier, they take a picture at a designated location in order to proceed through the challenge. The rules, of course, are that the teams are going to be challenging the domains via co-op. Like you mentioned, there's going to be 3 characters, 3 players per team, 1 character each, and they will be proceeding through the lands of Tevat in the order of the regions that we were all introduced to: Mondstadt, Liye, Inazuma, and then finally the newest region to join the Genshin Impact lands, Sumeru.
Yeah, it's gonna be like this Tevat tour, you know. It's gonna be a complete total of rather 11 domains and as well as 11 locations. That's gonna be very exciting. But now as we take a look at the rules, as you can see, restriction of only one 5-star character per party setup. And as well, after finishing a domain challenge, teams will have to sprint to a location and take a screenshot. So it's alternate, right? You finish a domain, take a screenshot, then go to a domain, finish the screenshot, take a screenshot rather. And of course, no weapon or food buff restriction, but however, you're not allowed to use potions. So the elemental resistance and elemental damage increase are not allowed. Reward claims are not exactly required. Bonus points can be achieved under certain conditions. A few of them mentioned earlier about, you know, if you don't have a 5-star character, bonus points. If you don't have stamina buffs, then that's also a bonus. And lastly, all domain challenges need to be at the maximum tier possible, so the hardest difficulty possible, travelers.
That's to make sure that our travelers will be able to truly show what they are capable of, the hidden potential within all of us travelers, players, and lovers of Genshin Impact, to really demonstrate what we are capable of. Yes, we love Genshin, great casual game, great fun, but that doesn't mean that we can't add just a little degree of competition here in the SEA Carnival. And I'm sure that all of the players will be having a lot of fun as well, strategizing and deciding what kind of team lineups they are going to be bringing to the table today. So I, for one, am very excited to watch. And I'm glad that all of you have decided to take time out of your day to join us as well as we embark on an incredible adventure.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what these teams have cooked up when it comes to comps on meta. But of course, up next, we got our featured team. It's going to be Nothing to Lose and versus Genshin Impactors. I love the names here, Staffa.
Always a lot of creativity in the names. I think Genshin gives a lot of creativity for us to try out different things, considering that we can regularly change our nicknames, change our statuses. And we've definitely seen some very funny stuff, so Nothing to Lose, Genshin Impactors, I don't think it's particularly unusual. It's not really out of the domain of us Genshin Impact players. But yes, so our stream today going to be separated into a few rounds. First round, we got these 2 teams, as we highlighted, Nothing to Lose, as well as Genshin Impactors, who will be going through the Domain Challenge and the Sprint Challenge to determine whether or not they will have the fastest times today.
Yeah, I'm super excited about this stuff, and the race starts from selecting your characters here and see how to maximize your composition. The first domain, as we saw earlier, it's gonna be coming from Mondstadt, which is the Midsummer Courtyard. Again, they only have 1 hour to complete all 11 domains, so I'm excited to see how this is gonna pan out.
And we get to see the remaining challenge time, the progress bar, just to keep track of how these teams are doing. From what we can see, Team Genshin Impactors seems to be going for a virgin team, from what I can tell from their lineup. Whereas on the other side, we've got Kenny here watching his perspective from Team Nothing to Lose. They seem to be going more for a Hyper Bloom lineup.
Yeah, that's true. Having to try and maximize all of this damage. I mean, when all of the Dendro new interactions came along, a lot of people were very excited about the Dendro and Electro interaction. The fact that you can reduce, they receive more damage from Dendro and Electro, and that is it. It just exploded stuff. It's done.
That was so fast from both of these teams, and that's already 1/2 of the sequence we mentioned. When they complete the domain challenge, they move on into the sprint challenge, and that is what both teams are going for right now. Just to give you guys a little bit of context, after completing the domain, the moment the challenge completed text appears on screen, teams are allowed to leave and move on to the next objective. In this case, after completing Midsummer Courtyard, the teams need to head to Star Snatch Cliff, specifically at nighttime, because the NPCs Maria and Maven need to be included in the screenshot that they will take.
Yeah, and I mean, just in case that they don't arrive where the NPCs are there, they can fast forward time on the in-game clock to make sure that the NPCs are there. Because the NPCs have to be with you in the screenshot.
Yeah, that is necessary. And for every other screenshot as well, there's going to be a necessary point of interest. So keep that in mind. As we can see, Genshin Impactors, they've already taken their first screenshot. They're going to head straight into the next domain, also going to be in Mondstadt, which is the Valley of Remembrance, while Nothing to Lose, also keeping up in terms of time. Now, I think we didn't quite mention this during the rules, but while you can change the lineups you use to challenge each domain, your sprint lineup, the 3 characters you use in overworld exploration, will be the same throughout your run.
Yeah, which is interesting. Both of the teams that we see so far aren't going for the impetuous wins buff for that stamina and as well as that movement speed. So it's very interesting that these guys are going for more of that bonus.
I can see that it looks like Genshin Impactors has elected to use the Adeptus Temptation starting from the second domain instead of the first. So that's an interesting strategic choice here. Looks like they want to preserve it specifically for the domains that are upcoming.
Yeah, which is going to be very interesting. I think they just want to maximize and see what they do. Meanwhile, there's not a lot of difference with Nothing to Lose with their composition on this domain in particular. Nahida is just blasting through everything so far. It has been very fast. So we'll see what the... so far, we can see that Genshin Impactors has been doing really well, though.
Yeah, Genshin Impact is definitely ahead of the curve for now in terms of timing, but Nothing to Lose, not too far behind. So considering that there's still going to be about 9 more domains for these teams to go through, anything can change. But I think this is also an opportunity for this talk about the sprint lineups that both these teams have chosen. Like you mentioned, they're not going for the animal movement speed increase. Instead, they're just using all the really tall characters.
The Ikemen, the Bishi boys, Safa. I like this so much.
Why not, right? I mean, having a taller character means that you have longer strides, it means that you climb faster, it means that you jump further. So, like you mentioned, Genshin Impact is going for the Ikemen, the Bishi boys, as you put it, whereas Nothing to Lose, going for Zhongli, as well as Jean and Yelan.
Yeah, they're still pretty like tall model characters either way, but we're taking a look at the third domain now that the Genshin Impactors are attacking, and so far no changes on their lineup every single time because we've seen how explosive this composition can go. Bennett just helping a lot with the damage output, and it's just done. It's over. Like that.
But it does look like on the opposite side, Nothing to Lose actually swapping up their comp for the first time. This time going for a freeze lineup along with Sucrose and Ayaka. And this is already a very smart idea, using the AI of the Bishops to jump forward by facing the wall so that they can group them up without necessarily having to fight the enemies individually.
Yeah, that's just super clever, managing them to just group up so that all of the AoEs are just going to get stacked together at the back of that stage. I think that's very, very smart. We can see the difference in approach for Genshin Impactors and Nothing to Lose so far. There's a very big contrast. No one's using the same composition. I mean, no team are using the same composition so far.
Let's say if it were to come to you, Riku, if you were participating in this challenge with your friends, would you use different lineups for each domain, or would you try to find the best lineup to go for every domain?
I mean, okay, I'm sure I would love to use the best optimizing, but I'm a very aesthetic. I build my comps via aesthetics, so I'm probably gonna use Zhongli and Ningguang for every single because I ship them so hard. So those two will always be in my party.
Understandable. I get what you mean. Sometimes you decide, I want to use characters that are going to be super strong, get through the challenge as fast as possible. But there's also that part of your subconscious which is like, but I want to compete in the SEA Carnival with my favorite waifu, my favorite husbando. And you can see how that might affect you a little bit.
Yeah, you gotta showcase your favorite husbando or waifu, right? Because you're just showing how much you love them. So basically that's, yeah.
But back to the teams, of course. Genshin Impact, they're definitely looking to be ahead of Nothing to Lose right now, who are only just moving on into the next domain, the Hidden Palace of Zou Formula in Liye. And just to provide a little bit more context to the viewers today, we mentioned earlier that you cannot change the 3 characters you use for overworld exploration throughout the entirety of the Warriors expedition, with one exception: when you need to change a character to solve a puzzle that unlocks a domain. In the case of the Hidden Palace of Zou Formula, you require a Geo character as well as a Pyro character to activate torches, so only for those puzzles they're allowed to switch to the correct elements.
Yep, there we go. And going back to the Genshin impactors, they have been very flexible with the composition, making sure that they use a different comp. And this time, it's a lot of freeze going on, hold people down, especially that fire, that pyro element in the middle of the room. It's just maximized a lot of these damages. But I'm so curious to see if it's still for Nothing to Lose. Is it still the Nahida composition that we've been seeing for the past 4 domains so far?
Yeah, that's what I'm personally curious about. But I do like what Genshin Impactors has gone for here. We have to remember the Hidden Palace of Zou Formula has a leyline disorder that gives you an extra boost of damage through an energy blast that is triggered during melt reactions. And since the enemies are usually afflicted by Pyro Aura, they elected to go for Cryo mostly in order to constantly apply Freeze and use Shatter to additionally do damage to their enemies.
Yeah, that melt definitely going to hurt them a lot. And our question has been answered, Staffa. They're not going for the Nahida comp anymore. They're going for Yelan. A similar approach, definitely, from what we saw in Genshin Impactors. So, yeah, there we go. Just as you said, you trying to maximize that melt for this composition, especially with the leyline disorder that you mentioned.
Yeah, this is actually quite interesting because both teams in round 1 here have actually chosen to use the exact same 3 characters for this specific domain. So all of a sudden, I'm thinking, have I been doing this domain wrong this whole time? Is this you min-max? Is this the strategy?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I remember, farming this a lot with Ganyu, just sitting at the back of the room and just charge attacking all day long. So this is definitely really good. I mean, to consider definitely that there's only one 5-star character allowed per team. So I can see why they decided to go with Yelan on this one.
Yep, Yelan definitely going to be a very strong support character overall. I do feel like support characters are going to be the star of the SEA Carnival here, because definitely there's going to be a lot of people who want to focus on getting those 5-star main DPSs, but characters like Yelan, like Nahida, are going to be a lot more valuable. And it looks like Genshin Impactors may have lost a little bit of time here. Stella looks like she actually dropped off the mountain for a bit, so they have to wait. Remember, all 3 players have to be in the screenshot in order for it to count.
Yeah, that's going to be extremely important. And one thing that I noticed, Staffa, not anything game-breaking or anything, it's just so funny how Genshin impactors like to face their backs against the screenshot and then Nothing to Lose their their faces in front of the camera. I just found it a very cute detail. It's just so cute.
Maybe they know what the charm of the Ikemen characters actually are,
Yeah, that's true. You have to have that dramatic effect. You have to have your backs against the screenshot, so there's that mysterious Ikemen effect.
But we can see here very quick domain clear by Genshin Impactors, as they were able to completely decimate the 3 Abyss Mages through pure elemental reactions, going for Bennett, going for Xingqiu, if I remember correctly, and Kazuha, because there are obviously 3 different elemental shields they have to break through. Yeah, having to make sure that you break those shields right away. They just exploded from the entirety of that damage. And right now we can see earlier Genshin Impactors was able to take their screenshots at I believe that was the Outsun Peak earlier. So we'll see now. I think I may have noticed something kind of unfortunate for the side of Nothing to Lose there. They're not actually taking a screenshot with the in-game camera. So I think the next time we go back to them, their progress bar hasn't actually moved. That could be a problem. Oh dear, that is true. And
And yeah, that's the reason why we haven't been seeing the progress bar progress, unfortunately. So we'll have to check that out later and see how it goes.
Ooh, that is quite unfortunate. We'll see how that comes to terms once it comes to the scoring. But continuing on, we do still have to talk about it. It does look like, once again, Nothing to Lose using a very similar strategy to Genshin Impact is going for full-out elemental reactions to clear the Abyss Mages as quick as possible.
And Kazuha just amplifying all of that damage with that swirl on Bennett's Pyro elemental reaction. So it's just a very, very strong composition, just making everything explode. We haven't been seeing Nahida anymore at the beginning of the 4th domain so far. So we'll see now, as we can see the Ikemen's just going at the very top of this peak.
Now, this is going to be the next location that they need to take a picture at the peak of Mount Aoshang. And of course, having tall characters is a big benefit when it comes to climbing these big mountains because, like we mentioned earlier, having that extra height means that you are able to climb cliffs faster and therefore shave off more time on your SEA Carnival run.
Yeah, that's true. And the fact that, you have to consider what rocks you're going to climb to maximize your stamina here and make sure that you don't run out and fall. I mean, we've seen that earlier. I believe it was the Nothing to Lose team where, unfortunately, their D-Look fell from Wuwang Hill Peak. And, you want to make sure you got to maximize your time.
Yeah, always gotta make sure that you don't make those small little mistakes, as now we could see Genshin Impactors, they've moved on to the domain of Guyun, which I believe is the 6th domain in the path. They're going for a full mono pyro lineup here, which is quite interesting. This is also one of the domains that will buff specific reactions, in this case, Melt and Vaporize, so it looks like they're just mainly taking advantage of the Cryo Aura to get that extra damage.
Yeah, that's true. Being able to tap in the resonance that they want, the double pyro, triple pyro in this case. And it does help them a lot considering the fact that you just mentioned there is that cryo constantly helping in the middle of the room get those reactions in. And now they're going with Guyun, going to Guyun as well for Genshin Impactors as they walk towards this area at the beach.
Up the beach, going through the beach.
The beach!
Ikemen. I think that is definitely the dream of many of us Genshin travelers right here. But based on the timing, it does look like Genshin Impactors is making much better time than Nothing to Lose. Basically a full minute ahead of them, as Nothing to Lose nearly the same timing, but they only just started the domain of Guyun, while Genshin Impactors are already moving on to the next photo-taking spot, which is this rocky peak above the Geo-Hypostasis.
Yeah, this is going to be a tough hill to climb a little bit. There's a couple of places where you can stand and regen stamina a little bit, but this is a pretty high peak if you ask me. There you go.
Yep,
no one fell.
Just a little Chingsin at the top as a consolation prize. I assume they're not going to take that. They don't need to take that. They just need the picture. And they got to include the Geo-Hypostasis as well. That explains why the angle. You'll notice that the angles that the players are taking pictures at are going to be the same throughout the entire SEA Carnival because they are very specific points of interest that have to be included in their photos.
Yep, exactly. So that's going to be how the carnival is going to be played. Therefore, every single domain, there's going to be a landmark that they have to take a picture of, and a certain point and scene that a player has to specifically include in the screenshot. So that's incredibly important. As long as it's seen, the scenery is seen, basically.
Yeah, basically. Now, with 44 minutes left in their time limit, Genshin Impactors have already moved on into our next region, the lands of Inazuma, mainly that of the Momiji Dyed Court domain. I think a lot of us are quite familiar with this domain as well, having the Flame Boon and the Frost Boon, but it doesn't really look like Genshin Impactors are going for that at all, instead relying once again on the good old Nahida lineup.
Yeah, the all classic Bloom and his Burgeon, as we've been seeing at the very beginning of the 4 first domains, where I believe it was Nothing to Lose that really liked this Nahida Bennett into Xingqiu combo here, and it has been very effective at just crazy explosive damage that we're seeing so far from this team.
Yep, the name of the game is elemental reactions, especially when it comes down to enemies that have big shields, like the Abyss Mages, as well as the Lava Turtles. The big boys gotta be able to work through their shield
Big
as
boys.
fast as possible. As now, Genshin Impact is, once again, completing their next photo on the top of the serpent's head. Looks like they're making pretty good time right now.
Yeah, right now it has been 42 minutes on the clock. Remember, all of these teams have 1 hour to complete every single domain and landmark. That's 11 in total, and that's 42 minutes. And they're already at the 8th domain for their challenge. So I think Genshin Impactors are making pretty good time, just as you said.
Yeah, they're definitely put in a lot of practice. They've definitely put in a good amount of research to determine which lineups, which characters are going to be the strongest in each of these domains as they now make their way into Slumbering Court. This is, of course, going to be the realm of the Rift Hounds, enemies that I think all of us would not want to see in our worst nightmares. They're choosing not to go with healers, instead relying on their dodging mechanics, and going for mainly Electro in their lineup.
Yeah, that's true. I was a bit worried there, just as you said, because Kujo Sara here, or June, has been dashing and run out of stamina, but looks like they're just going to be okay, and they're able to clear it out. It's all about that raw damage, versus, just as you said, that sustain, because, again, time is the essence.
It's an interesting strategy they've gone for. Slumbering Court gives a 40% electro damage bonus in its Leyline Disorder, but it also deals a true damage shockwave like many other domains on Electro Charge. So the fact that they just went for pure Electro, no Hydro characters at all, means that they're confident that the Electro damage is enough.
And there has been a varying of a strategy and approach. I think the only one that we noticed that has been similar is the hidden plays of Zhou, which they went for, the Yelan composition, basically freeze and hydro for that domain. And so far, that's the only thing that has been the same. Everything has been very different for Genshin Impactors and nothing to lose.
Yeah, it's very fun to watch because we're Genshin Impact players, we love the game, and we're not going to be quite as optimized as some of these players, considering the time they've definitely put in to think about their strategies.
Yeah, I remember you were talking about this stuff off stream, where I asked, like, how do you play Genshin Impact? Are you like min-max, or are you meta, or are you like aesthetics, waifu, husbando, I'll put them all in one comp? And then you said...
Yeah, I said that I will identify the top waifus, my favorite waifus, and then I will build meta comps around them. So basically, a little of both, the best of both worlds.
That's a good balance. That's honestly a very good balance, because you build around someone. Meanwhile, I have to build around two because I ship two people. Oh well, at least I have the Geo buff, double Geo, Ningguang and Zhongli. That's what matters, right, Stalfa?
That's true, getting that double Geo, having your ship around, there's also a psychological factor to this. You will perform better when you have your favorite characters in your fingertips.
I agree. It's that motivation whenever you see your wife or husband, though.
But that does look like Genshin Impact is continuing to make pretty good time right here. I wasn't quite paying attention which domain this is, but I believe this is the Lost Valley, the one domain in the chasm that these teams will also have to go through. This is also the third last domain in the SEA Carnival run, so Genshin Impact they're in the home stretch.
Yeah, they're pretty close to finishing, just as you said. There's only last two domains, and so far they're making really good time. Half HP already on this boss, and there's just a lot of elemental reactions going on here to make sure to maximize on this domain, and that's it. They're done. It's a lot of save time.
Well, very clean gameplay from Genshin Impactors. Definitely living up to their team name right now, because you can definitely tell the impact they are making on these domains, on the path. Really, it looks like they are going to be heading on into the next area to take a picture of as well. And they do have to break through the rocks, as you can see here, in order to achieve it. So having a bow character like Tartaglia here in order to make sure that they don't end up accidentally dying to the explosion damage is going to be difficult.
Yeah, you don't want to accidentally put yourself behind on time, especially if you're doing so well already. We can see that they still have 38 minutes left, and we're talking about the last two domains in the challenges so far, and they're doing really well. Oh, they're fine.
There was definitely a bit of nervousness there. It's like, is the glider gonna come out? Definitely don't want to end up dying here, because while dying is not an issue, it's going to cost them time, because they're gonna have to TP to the closest point and then make their way back to the place where they have to take a photo, which in this case is the center seal of the Chasm's Maw. And obviously, when we are trying to clear all these domains as fast as possible, that is going to be very valuable time to preserve.
Yeah, you want to maximize it. Make sure, because I feel like because there's a lot of teams involved in the carnival, I feel like every second will count, and you want to be included in the top 8 to move on to the playoffs. Especially it's going to be held in Comic Fiesta in Kuala Lumpur December 17 and 18, so that's going to be very, very hype.
Yeah, very exciting. I'm looking forward to it. But for those of you who are paying attention as well, right now we could see Genshin Impactors, they have just unlocked the domain, namely Under the Umbrella Shade. And you might wonder, why aren't they running this domain? Well, that is because that is actually a single player domain. So all they actually have to do for this one specifically is unlock it, move on to the picture taking point, which is going to be the fishing pond on top of one of these mushrooms, and then they can just straight on move to the final domain of the challenge.
Yeah, it's going to be the Spire of Solitary Enlightenment. So they're already very, very close to the finish line here with a lot of time to spare. They're just going to be zapping around this map in particular, and just as you said, move on to like the screenshot and see for the next domain that they're going to go to. I'm very curious what they're going to be doing at the very last domain.
I do like to see that they've definitely memorized the route. They've definitely paid attention.
Yeah, they're such experts.
This area can be very confusing. There's a lot of points you can jump to. There's a lot of mushrooms around, and they all look very similar. So the fact that they're not confused by that means that, okay, they know where they're going, and they're absolutely going for the win here.
Yeah, it's home stretch right now, and let's see what the composition is going to be. It's going to be another Ayaka, Sucrose, and Singcho once more. I believe they've used this earlier once, and they're going to be bringing it out again. So we'll see how they're probably going to do the strat again, from what they seem earlier. Sure, to gather everyone to maximize all that damage and reactions.
Yeah, from what I can observe with Genshin Impact it does look like what they've done is that they've set up maybe 3 or 4 team lineups for the domains that they're comfortable with, and they're just deciding which one is the best for each specific domain. Because in this case, the Spire of Solitary Enlightenment, the final domain which they just completed, the Leyline Disorder allows them to increase all EM based on 10% of the total party EM. And having Sucrose there definitely will add quite a bit to that, which I think is why they decided to go with that lineup specifically.
Yeah, and the fact that it refreshes, every 20 seconds, but I don't think it even lasted 20 seconds. That fight was so fast. So they just basically maximized that disorder for their advantage. And now it's the last stretch. It's basically just trying to get the screenshots down for the teams after that domain, because it's the last domain already. Basically, you have to take a screenshot at the Sanctuary, and that's it. That's the end of the race.
Yep, the Sanctuary of Surastana going to be the finish line for the run of the Genshin Impact SEA Carnival. The challenge time for all of these teams will end. It will complete the moment they take the picture with the in-game camera. So we can see Genshin Impactors, they are making that final sprint now. And you can imagine that as Genshin Impact players, we definitely have that subconscious desire to just open the map and click on a teleport waypoint. But obviously that's not allowed because it is a sprint challenge.
Yeah, having to know which rocks to climb, which paths to climb to make sure that you get the fastest time. That's very, very like even Ayato just went from the roof. Actually, that's the route that they were going for. I thought Ayato came from a different point of the building, and I'm like, whoa, what happened there? Yeah, basically, this is it. This is the last stretch. They have to take a screenshot right in front of the sanctuary, and remember that this is, even though you see the time, they still have to make calculations, considering the fact that they never used any animal stamina buff to make sure that they have maximize their stamina and as well as their movement speed. So take note for that. There's a bunch of calculations for the bonus that they have acquired.
Yeah, there's a lot of tiebreaker points that will come into play if multiple teams are able to achieve the same time here, but that also comes down to the very second, so I do think it's going to be quite a rare situation. In my opinion, the teams should just go ahead with whatever they think is fastest. But with that, the final screenshot has been taken by Genshin Impactors, and that is the end of their run. Not too certain what their challenge time is, but I get the feeling we will get to see that in just a moment.
Yeah, I think they had like 30 minutes more or less to spare. So that's very, very fast time considering the fact that, again, this is not a complete like 4 players, because usually we're so used to 4 players. This is 3 players, making sure you maximize everything. So your creativity is stretched some more with this dynamic.
Yeah, absolutely. But with our first 2 teams complete, we're going to move on into the next round. 2 more teams heading head-to-head. It is going to be Team Bebas De and Gamer Melayu. Definitely local teams. As a Malaysian myself, these are very familiar words. I think they're definitely from around here. So I'm interested to see what kind of strategies, what kind of lineups they're going to use for the SEA Carnival run.
Yeah, I think so far the thing that stood out was, I believe, Nothing to Lose saying a team rather that had 4 straight Nahida, Singcho, and Bennett so far. So it has been very different approaches, and I feel like it's going to be very different when we see Bebasta and Gamer Malayu as well, or unless we see, some teams having the same brain cell and think, yes, this is what we think is the best and the most optimized run.
It's very interesting, honestly. Quite exciting to find out what kind of characters people like using and what's actually the most optimal for specific domains. But besides the domains as well, what interests me very much is the characters that they are using for overworld exploration, the sprint challenges.
Yeah.
Because in both Genshin Impactors and Nothing to Lose, they use 3 tall characters, whereas, as you mentioned, the animal resonance would be very helpful in increasing movement speed, and we know that a lot of animal characters have really good traversal skills, like Kazuha, like Venti. Do you think that we'll see teams use those, or will it just be Ikemen and tall waifus all the way?
I have a feeling we're going to see the animal boys. I have a strong feeling because the stamina buffs, you can't deny how helpful they are when you do the sprint challenges. So I think we might see them at least once.
Well, I'm very excited to find out whether or not that will be the case. But we're going to be moving on into our next round. Team Bebas De, Team Gamer Malayu. Will they be able to beat the time of the teams that came before? Starting things off, already, I think we are actually seeing the Animal Boys. Not sure if that is actually their sprint lineup from Team Bebas De, but I saw Xiao, Venti, and Kazuha, if I remember correctly. So we'll see if that's actually going to be their overworld exploration party.
Yeah, we'll see after this Midsummer Courtyard. We're gonna find out about that soon, because I'm sure the teams are just gonna breeze through the very first domain here with Sucrose managing to gather every single one, and we see just a lot of elemental reactions, just maximizing that pyro, as well as that hydro is just fast. Meanwhile, this is a very different approach. It's more on Ayato here. Instead. So earlier was Yelan. So Hydro versus Cryo here for both of these teams.
Indeed. Having Ayato and Yelan here, but otherwise, very similar lineups from both these teams. It does look like Team Bebas De was able to clear the domain just a little bit quicker. So maybe that's Husbando supremacy? Who knows? Moving on into the sprint exploration teams. Now we actually get to see what are the characters that have been used. And Team Gamer Malayu looks like they did not start their challenge at nighttime, so they do actually have to manually move move time forward to make sure that the NPCs are at Star Snatch Cliff for the screenshot.
Yeah, and speaking of the screenshot, and speaking of what we were talking about earlier, Staffa, it is the Animal Boys, you are correct, that we saw previously before they entered the Midsummer Courtyard, and I am so happy to see this. That's the win, that's Venti's skill being able to help, and we'll see, actually Kazuha's skill being able to help, and we'll see now with the NPCs. I like this approach, the Animal Boys.
I think a lot.
It's not the Ikemen squad anymore, Staffa.
Yeah, a lot of us travelers are going to have quite a bit of affection for the Animal Boys because of just how much value they add to the team comps, how they're able to gather, how they're able to make our lives so much easier, and how their lives have definitely not been easier. So there's a lot of emotional baggage on these characters.
What, you gotta remind us, dude? I'm sure everybody's crying for the Animal Lord. Jeez. Anyway, I don't want to be too sad too much, but we see two Animal Boys again. It looks like Gamer Malayu also holding on to the Animal Boys with the buff for that stamina and movement speed to be very helpful. I like the contrast stuff. Earlier in the first round, we see people, the team saying, you know what, we're not going to use that. We're going to be using non-animal characters for our sprint challenge. And meanwhile, this is the complete opposite that we're seeing.
Yeah, going for the animal character in exchange for not having the height of the... Oh, that's an unfortunate death from Devas. Bennett just got bursted all the way, but he did get his elemental burst up and running, so that is more than enough for the rest of his team to clean up.
Yeah, Ayato is still alive, the DPS was still pretty much alive, so it's still going to be okay, and therefore they just have to rush through... rush through that screenshot. And people are allowed to use that healing as long as they're done. The statue 7, rather, they're allowed to use the statues for healing as long as they're done with the screenshots and before they enter a domain.
Yep, as long as they make sure that otherwise all of the rules are followed, then everything is fair game. I do want to talk a little bit about this overworld lineup from Gamer Malayu. Not only do they have the animal resonance to increase movement speed, they've also decided to use Rosaria, who has a very unique passive, increasing the movement speed of her party members at nighttime.
And it's perfect because they needed to be at night to actually see the NPCs by Star Snatch Cliff.
Yeah, so it's honestly very interesting, and that's honestly a passive that slips my mind a lot of the time because admittedly I don't use Rosaria very much. I'm sorry, Rosaria fans. I'm sure that there's a lot of you who are going to be not so happy about that right now, but yeah.
Oh, I love you.
Yeah, I literally just had to look that up because I was like thinking, doesn't Rosaria have some kind of movement speed passive? And yeah, apparently she does.
And that's very, very specific. It has to be at nighttime, which, works out since, they had the forward time and see how they're going to do that. I feel like they're going to, since the overworld exploration composition will have to be the same, so we might continuously see this crew forward time to make sure that it's nighttime just to maximize that buff.
And it's actually a very smart way of going about it as well, because like we mentioned, there are bonus points that players can get in terms of tiebreakers later on, where using characters that reduce stamina consumption, like Xiao, like Kazuha, like Venti, does actually reduce your bonus points. In this case though, Rosaria does not have a stamina reducing passive. She actually just gives bonus movement speed, so she doesn't actually reduce the bonus points from tiebreakers that Team Gamer Malayu will get.
And it's so smart. And this is the first time we're seeing the Rosario approach here because so far, there are the teams that we saw earlier, just no animal period. That's it. But this is a combination of the Impetuous Winds buff for the double Animo and then Rosaria. So we'll have to see with that stamina and as well as that movement speed helping out here for the Animo bonus.
Yeah, but I'm personally going to be the most curious about how quickly Team Bebas Day will be able to complete their run this time, because having not only 3 Animal for the extra resonance, but Xiao, Kazuha, and Venti all have very strong map traversal abilities. We literally saw earlier Xiao flying across the air with his elemental skill, so that could definitely cut a lot of time.
Yeah, Kazuha too, just using his skill to get through high places so easily. And it's way faster than the charge of Venti as well. So I really do like this approach coming from Gamer Malayu as well. So as we get to see them, I believe we're already at the 3rd domain so far. Rather, 3rd landmark so far. And it's been pretty fast with this approach, considering the fact that this is the first time we're seeing both of these teams using a lot of the movement speed buffs from the characters.
Yeah, both teams do seem to be quite comfortable with the characters that they have chosen, and in comparison to the teams we saw in round 1, these teams do seem to be quite comfortable keeping the same overall domain lineup the entire time, mainly relying on the Ayato and Yelan team comps we saw earlier. So I'm wondering whether or not we'll see more unique domain team compositions pretty soon.
Then we'll have to see what the approach is, because I believe the round 1 teams earlier had the exact same composition here at the hidden place of Zol. Meanwhile, they have to do this puzzle. They so far just to see and then unlock. Players are allowed to switch as long as they're able to do the puzzle, and that's allowed.
Yeah, we can see as well, it looks like multiple members of the team have decided to switch characters to make sure that they can clear the puzzle as fast as possible. Team Gamer Malayu, they brought 2 Pyro Archers just to get all of the torches. I saw that Team Bebas Day, they actually brought Hu Tao, and that already earns them a place in my heart, even if it's not the most efficient.
I was about to ask, like, are you happy? It seems like you are. I mean, I could see your Hu Tao merchandise on your table. Just a lot. Oh my.
I'm hoping that's not the only time we get to see Hu Tao this time. Because not only is she very cute, she is very strong. So I want to see these teams use Hu Tao, if not just for my own personal bias.
Yeah, that's true, because round 1 there was 0 Hu Tao in any of these domains, so I wonder if we'll get to see her this time around. And so far, Yelan basically and Nahida have basically populated most of these compositions for DPS. Meanwhile, Ayato is now like supposedly the main for Bebas Day in the domains that we're seeing so far in round number 2.
I guess Team Bebas, they are just very confident in the artifacts that they've been able to provide to Ayato. Meanwhile, here, Team Gamer Malayu, having a little bit of difficulty. We have to mention to all of you viewers at home, this domain has enemies in front of it, as we have already seen, and it is actually compulsory to clear the enemies before moving on to the domain itself. And I have seen some of the players express quite a bit of annoyance to specifically the Electro Chichin, because they just fly everywhere and they waste so much time.
Yeah, they just teleport everywhere. You go near and they just teleport somewhere else. Yeah, but meanwhile, Bebas Day is able to now start this domain already. Just trying to make sure that they clear all of these Abyss Mages, which are also annoying in their own right.
Yeah, but having Barbara here in the hands of Ruro Frank from Team Bebas Day will make this quite a cakewalk for them. I saw that their strategy of grouping up the Abyss Mages didn't quite work out though, because Barbara was just a little bit too late to the party, but it worked out in the end. Whereas on the other side, we have Team Gamer Malayu still sticking with the Yelan comp. They also have Barbara, but also Xing Chu, so just full Hydro for the Hidden Palace of Zo formula.
Yeah, that's true. Being able to break through all of these shields as well with the melt. So it's going to be definitely very, very important for them. Sorry, vaporize for Hydro and Pyro. Yep. And I like this so much because the off-field against Xing Cho is just so valuable. In the why to say off-field? There's 3 characters right there in the field. My brain stuff.
It's pretty understandable, because when you see Xing Chu, you see Yelan, instantly it's off-field support. But in this
My
case,
brain just automatically went there.
yeah, in this case, it's 3 players, so they're all actually on field at the same time. Now,
On field.
there's definitely going to be some limitations as well, because that means that the elemental burst from Xingqiu and Yalan only activates on their own auto attacks instead of comboing with another elemental infusion. But I don't think that's too big of an issue.
Yeah, it's not big of an issue at all, and I don't know why. It's just so nice to see these animal boys just flying and using Venti's skill to traverse this mountain. Because remember, in round number 1, Diluc fell in this part of the landmark. So this is very handy, and it seems very breezy for the animal boys here for Bebaste.
Yeah, having that vertical traversal from both Venti and Kazuha is going to contribute very heavily towards climbing these sort of mountains, whereas we're already seeing on the side of Team Gamer Malayu, ooh, that stamina, my goodness, I can imagine that he was sweating buckets in that moment.
Yeah, like Rosario just didn't move like after you see the stamina depleted and like, okay, I'm fine. I didn't fall. Yeah, that was too close. Again, this is very important because every single second will count. Considering the fact that there's a lot of teams involved in the carnival. Again, it was open to 64 teams, and this is just, it's a party. It's a carnival, all right.
Yep, it's a carnival, which means lots of fun, lots of strategy, lots of excitement, and that's exactly what we have been seeing so far. Hopefully everyone who is watching with us right now is enjoying these players' journeys through the lands of Teyvat. As now we can see, so far, the timing from both these teams is actually pretty similar, so it does look like that animal resonance coming into play.
Yeah, it seems to me that, a lot of these teams are deciding, do we want the bonus points or do we not want the bonus points, and just try to clear as fast as we can and make sure that we clear, maximize the time rather for the seconds, because we keep talking that every second will count because these teams are fighting for top 8 spot to proceed to the playoffs and play at the Comic Fiesta on December 17 to 18 in Kuala Lumpur. So it's a big thing. It's a big thing to go to top 8, to reach top 8.
It's a huge thing. Actually, I'm seeing something very unique here because so far, every other team, when they come to this domain, the Clear Pool and Mountain Cavern, they stand in the corner to group all of the Abyss Mages together. But Team Gamer Malayu actually decided to go for a team of 3 characters with different elements and assign them 1 Abyss Mage each.
That's super cool. It's a 1v1, 1v1, 1v1. It's a triple 1v1 kind of. And it worked out. It worked out for them. It's a triple 1v1. Yeah, you're right. Like, some people just do the sucrose, gather them up, make sure they just take advantage of the reactions. And no, I love this unique approaches in the game, and that's just round 2 so far, Staffa. There's a lot of variety that you can do, creativity that you can do in Genshin Impact.
Yeah, we don't get to see direct comparisons of how quickly these teams are able to clear each domain, which is a shame because I personally am very interested to see whether or not the more common group-up strategy or the triple 1v1 strategy is more effective. But we're not going to truly get an answer for that, as now we can see Team Bebaste making pretty good time here as they make it to the next picture-taking spot.
Yeah, they're able to use that windmill to traverse quite quickly at the very top of this peak, and that's just incredibly fast. Now they're going for Guyan, the domain of Guyan, quite quickly. And meanwhile, let's see how Gamer Malayu gets to the very top. I mean, we were seeing them earlier move as an entire group, no Venti, just the 2 animal boys and the movement speed that Rosaria can provide. As we can see, it's always been nighttime, so if you're gonna pick Rosaria, gotta take advantage of that.
It's actually quite interesting. I'm wondering whether or not Team Gamer Malayu is actually switching the time to night off screen every single time it changes the day. Because so far, it has been night for their entire run, while we've already seen a day-night cycle complete for Team Bebaste. So definitely some strategies happening there. As now we can see the first appearance of the Raiden Shogun.
Yeah, they're looking at the double Electro here with Bennett just to maximize this damage, just for the buffs here, and they're going at it quite quickly as long as they're able to remove the biggest monster. I don't know why I did an Uwu voice there. I'm so sorry. That came out of nowhere.
I don't really know what you would have to go through for the uwu voice to just come out subconsciously.
Yeah, there wasn't even a baby character. There wasn't a Titi. There wasn't a Nahida or anything like that. It just came out for some reason. I don't know why it does that. You know.
Well, I don't think we need to dig any deeper into that.
Yep. Moving on to this domain.
It does look like Team Gamer Malayu might be just a little bit slower than their counterparts here. Team Evasday already having completed the domain of Guyun earlier, taking advantage of the leyline disorder to do as much damage with Superconduct as possible with the Raiden Shogun and Kujo Sara. Now moving on to the next picture-taking spot above the Geo Hypostasis.
Yeah, we'll see if they're able to. Again, this is the triple animal squad, so quite quick with if they do want to take advantage of Venti's elemental skill. So we'll just hop a few steps, then manually climb. And meanwhile, it's double pyro instead for the approach of Gamer Malayu. Earlier, you said it was Superconduct with the Electro with Raiden Shogun and Kujo Sara, but this is a very different approach instead for Gamer Malayu.
Yeah, it's actually a risky approach as well, because in the domain of Guyun, as you can kind of see, they are getting struck by lightning, because we take damage on Melt and Vaporize in this domain specifically, so they are taking the risk of that damage from the domain in exchange for faster clear speed, because Pyro will destroy Cryo Shields much quicker than Electro.
Yeah, they wanted to prioritize those Abyss Mages, definitely, versus the approach of what we saw from Bebaste. And we'll see how it will work out later on, because again, even though these teams going through the same challenge, there will be, what do you call this? There will be challenges along the way. Like, for example, maybe Gamer Malayu does really well on some of these domains. The times can potentially change here, depending on the overall state of this Carnival of round 2.
And sometimes enemy AI can be a little bit uncooperative too.
That's
as well. As much as we want to say, oh, enemy AI is very predictable, we know exactly what's going to happen, that isn't necessarily 100% the case. So teams have to be able to factor in a little bit of RNG as well. But I don't think RNG is anything that we travelers are unfamiliar with.
Yeah, oh yeah. Oh, yeah. I think that's enough. I just said, oh.
Nothing more needs to be said. Everyone in the comments right now understands.
I bet, yeah. But I think the difference is that I actually welcome TT. TT is, I love her so much. I don't mind losing my 50-50s as long as I get TT.
Honestly, I would like to say the same thing, considering I am a day 1 player, and I still don't have Chi-Chi. There's a lot of people in the comments right now who are going to be like, how is that possible? I can assure you it is, and I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either how you managed to dodge Chi-Chi after all these years. Day 1 of Genshin Impact. Oh, okay. Oh. I guess you're not destined to have Chi-Chi.
And the funny thing is, like you said, I wouldn't even mind having a Chi-Chi.
Yeah, so she's very cute, and she's a very good healer. Wait, what have you been getting though, if you're not getting Chi-Chi?
I think I've actually been getting a good amount of on-banner characters. When I lose 50-50,
on-banner characters!
So I've gotten 2 Keqings, 2 Jeans, I have a Diluc, I have a Tignari. Funny enough, I also don't have Mona.
What? Okay,
Yeah.
That's amazing. It's amazing how many you've touched Mona and TT. It's okay. It's okay. It's alright.
Yeah. But let's not talk about my strange 50-50 RNG here and move on back to how our teams are doing. As we can see, Team Evaste already completed their screenshot on top of Serpent's head. Looks like they are making pretty good time, but in comparison to what we saw from the teams in round 1, it does look like Team Bebasde and Gamer Malayu are actually moving just a little bit slower.
Yeah, it's been a challenge. Like there are a couple of trials that came their way. I mean, when we looked at Hidden Place of Zou earlier, they had to clear a lot of these monsters before they had to enter the domain. So when we looked at round number 1, it was we were beginning to see the priority of just in case these monsters get in the way. In round number 1, we see a lot of the players just avert from the animal and just go for the ikemen and the two tall women in Zhongli. So there might be some reason, and either from the aside from the bonus points, it's also there for perhaps one of these easy clears, perhaps.
If it came down to you personally, would you go for the all tall characters lineup for your overworld team, or would you prefer the animal boys?
Oh, I will go for Zhongli, Ningguang, and Titi. One happy family.
Oh, I
One
see.
happy family. The UA family. I can't help it. Oh, they're just adorable.
Chi-Chi, wouldn't it be like Xiao?
Oh, that's true. The sun. I have a soft
The
spot
sun.
for TT. I know I have to go for the sun, but TT is my first ever favorite 5-star character. So I have a soft spot for her. Yeah.
True. Gotta have the soft spot for that first 5-star. Even if it's not necessarily who you wanted from your 50-50, it's still your first 5-star.
Yeah, it's a very different feeling with your very first 5-star and your very favorite first 5-star. It's something special. It's definitely something special.
Absolutely. But moving on, we can see that teams continuing with their path as Team Gamer Malayu were just able to complete the Slumbering Court. Now moving on to their next photo-taking spot, Asase Shrine. Note that these teams don't actually have to clear enemies along the way if they don't want to. They can, but obviously just running past them is going to save them a lot more time.
Yeah, absolutely. Just trying to dodge the damage that comes their way if they pass through an enemy that draws aggro a little too close there. Especially we keep talking about the stuff that the seconds are so incredibly important here. If you want to reach top 8 among the 64 teams that registered for the qualifiers of this carnival.
64 teams, definitely not a small amount, and with 3 players on each team as well, that's basically nearly 200 travelers participating in the SEA Carnival for a chance to go to the playoffs.
Was that quick maths or?
I think it's quick math.
Quick maths, nice
Quick
one.
math. Specifically
Quick math,
192.
Wow, what? 192?
Yes, 192 players. If I'm not wrong, I hope I'm not wrong right here, and like
I would believe you are not wrong. You are correct.
because if I'm
That's a
wrong,
lot
the
of
comments will
travelers.
definitely be.
You're fine.
will
You're
not
fine,
let me
Salva.
live
You're
it
fine.
down.
You're okay. You're okay. But looking at the time now, 35 minutes. While it is similar, we'll have to see how this plays out, how it ends, because there is still 2 to 3 domains left, or rather 2 to 3 spots so far in their run. I'm very curious to see, because earlier we saw like what 32 minutes, 30 minutes clear at the very last screenshot spot. So I'm curious to see how far or how close these teams are from round 1.
Yeah, I believe so. Team MSD, it does look like they're basically a full minute ahead of Team Gamer Malayu, and they are already in the next domain, the Lost Valley. Once again, going for the Ayato lineup, going to be very strong, takes down the Ruin Grader without much problem at all.
Yeah, exactly. Just trying to get all of these elemental reactions down for damage maximization, and we'll have to see now for Gamer Malayu. Let's see how they approach this domain here. I'm sorry, I got a little bit confused. Like, this is not your overall exploration composition.
No.
Like, I had to think for like a second there. Like, oh, that's not there.
I think the overworld looking a lot like a domain right now.
Yeah. that 1 second brain fart. But you know, I feel like the story for Gamer Malayu and Bevas has been the story of Yelan versus Ayato so far, at least what we're seeing.
It does seem that way. I do get the feeling that if Yelan and Ayato were to ever actually meet, they would probably get along.
Really? How would the interaction look like for you?
I think that they would be very intimidating to watch. You know, they're gonna exchange pleasantries. They're gonna exchange pleasantries, be all polite with one another, but everyone around them could feel the tension.
Yeah, I don't think I can handle their presence. I feel like it's a lot, you know, a lot of what do you call this? What's the energy? It's like royalty energy, is it? Just I'm trying to find the correct word. They're up there.
What you mean. I get what you mean. For some reason, I can't think of it either.
Yeah. It's terrifying, those two. But it has been a versus between these two teams. They've been considering their only 5-star would be Yelan, the other one would be Ayato. So I really like the approach and the difference, because it's so far all of these teams have different approaches, and there's only been one similar instance where they had the same composition, but the rest of the domains very different.
Yep. We can see here the team members there. They've already completed the puzzle, so they will be flying their way over to the Chasm's Maw. The same can be said for Team Gamer Malayu, so it looks like there has been a little bit of catching up going on, though I wasn't paying too much attention to the timer, so I'm not too sure if there's still a big difference like we saw earlier.
Yeah, because in the previous round, it was around 30 minutes. So this is going to be interesting. It's a bit close, considering the fact that they still have to go through 2 more domains for Gamer Malayu as well, which is the last region, which is Someru. So very interesting. Round 1 looking to be good so far, but again, we still have to tally up the points, considering there are bonus points and stuff like that. So there's still a lot to be seen.
Yep, absolutely. Now, looks like they're going to be teleporting over to Under the Umbrella Shade once again. They gotta complete the Dendro Totem puzzle. This time, it looks like... Oh, for a moment, it looked like they weren't actually going to change to a Dendro character and just rely on the Dendro Granum, but then I saw, they swapped the color, so it looks like it is still faster to have multiple characters clearing the puzzle ASAP.
Yeah, still very important. We saw there Tainari. Oh, Tainari, I love him. It's so funny. I don't know why I have to make that side comment, but
yeah, I feel like I'm gonna have to ask for some context. Yeah. I think a lot of the people that, because Tainari was a character that I didn't expect to fall in love with, because he's just so snarky and so funny as a character. He's such a mood. He's such a big mood, Staffa. He is a surprisingly big mood, isn't he? I think a lot of people, when they first saw Tainari being revealed, were just thinking, oh, it's gonna be another Goro type character, right? Because of the big ears. But then turns out he's like one of the snarkiest dudes to ever live. So that's great.
I totally love his personality, but he's not here. We're seeing now the puzzle basically sort of done, and now they're going through the screenshot part of things. And as we talked about it is 29 minutes. So this is, at least when it comes to the timer, we know round 1. The round 1 team is able to reach before 30 minutes has passed. And again, it's important. Top 8 doesn't mean that one team is faster than you. It doesn't mean that you're air quote out. It's still top 8 is the goal for all of these teams.
Yeah, I do wonder whether or not this difference comes from the fact that they are using the animal voice in the overworld exploration, or just that their domain clear speed isn't quite as fast, because in comparison, we can definitely see that these two teams are swapping their domain lineups basically not at all in comparison to before.
Yeah, definitely relying a lot on, again, the Vaporize that we keep talking about, Yelan being the number 1. Oh no, got frozen!
Ooh, that's rough. That's scary. But they do have the Bennett burst here, so that healing is fine. But that's definitely going to cost some time. The knockback from the Eremites really annoying to have to deal with.
Yeah, so a lot of these teams have to consider one of those full offense, defense, a little balance on the defense on the offense, or just full on offense for sure. As we've been seeing so far, these teams. I was a bit too close. My heart skipped a little bit once I saw the Yellen frozen and kept getting knocked back. But everything's still fine. As we can see, Big Gamer Malayu on the progress bar. It's 1 bar left. Very, very close. They need a walk. They need a fly. They need to go to the last screenshot place.
Yep, once again, the Sanctuary Asurastana, the final location on the journey of all of these travelers on the Genshin Impact SEA Carnival, making sure to pay just a visit to our good old Dendro Archon before our journey ends. So far, the timer is definitely looking to be slower than what we saw in round number 1. That doesn't necessarily mean that these teams won't be making it into the top 8, because there's obviously still another, as you mentioned, 64 teams total. So you never know what kind of timings will qualify you to the playoffs.
Yeah, considering the fact that there are also scoring factors, like, of course, aside from what we know with the fastest time clear, overall fast time, timer rather, and as well as the fact that, some bonuses, like, haven't seen teams yet go for no 5-star because that acquires bonus points. But so far, a lot of the teams' approach are still 1 5-star character, because that's part of the rules. You only have to have one. You only can have 1 5-star character, but you can have bonus points if it's all 4-star characters.
Yeah, I think just having the single 5-star character in the domain is just too valuable. It cuts off way too much time to even be considered. Because yes, you do get bonus points for the tiebreaker, but in order for the tiebreaker to occur in the first place, your time has to be the exact same, which, what are the chances of that, right? So may as well just go for the 5 stars, clear domains as fast as possible.
That is definitely, cannot risk the bonus for the DPS loss, so gotta make sure that you have. I think if I'm guessing correctly and predicting correctly, I feel like a lot of these teams are going to go for still without the bonus of the no 5-star character. Just as you said, Stafa, it's incredibly important to clear all of these domains as fast as they can.
Absolutely. And now we can see both teams getting very close to the Sanctuary. They should be able to complete their challenge runs pretty soon. Like we can see in the time remaining, definitely going to be slower than what we saw earlier from Genshin Impactors, but still a very solid time overall, having around 25 minutes left. A lot of time is definitely lost, as we can see in situations like this, where you do have to wait for your teammates to catch up, because everyone has to be in the photo. But looks like Team Gamer Malayu, they've completed their run, 25 minutes left. Team Bebas, they're actually very close as well. Probably like a 10-15 second difference. And with that, that's the end of round 2. Quite an incredible performance here, though, all things considered, from both Team Bebasde and Team Gamer Malayu. Although their timing might not quite match up to Genshin Impactors, still really good, and obviously still very fun to watch how they're able to go through the domains, go through the challenges, what characters they use. But the festivities aren't over yet, because we've got 2 more teams coming up.
Yeah, we've got Ancient Engine and Sayonara. That's a very cute pun there. Adorable. But just to recap, round 1, the round 1 team so far has set the tone of the timers, considering that we saw one team that is able to finish within 30 minutes, 30 minutes to spare as well. So in the previous round, it was more playing around 26 minutes. So now Ancient Engine and Sayonara, we'll see how they do in the 3rd round.
Yeah, very interesting team names here. We have one really cool name, Ancient Engine. That's excellent. I love that. I just think you just hear it as like, ooh, that feels so powerful. And then you have Sayonara on the opposite side, which is very cute. If they don't use Sayu, I will be questioning their team name choice.
Exactly. They have to use Sayu at least once. I have a feeling it has to be a part of their plan. That's why they named themselves Sayonara. Or they're just a bunch of Sayu stands, maybe. We'll see.
That's true. I'm honestly surprised we haven't seen more of like Yelan and Sayu in overworld exploration. But I guess although they run fast, they don't necessarily climb so fast. So maybe that's what comes into play. But speaking of coming into play, let us head on into round 3 of the Genshin Impact SEA Carnival Online Qualifiers. Starting things off, we've got Team Sayonara already making it into the first domain, Midsummer Courtyard, also using a Nahida team comp.
Yeah, both of them are going for the Burgeon, just as you mentioned earlier. In round number 1, it was quite similar. It was one team that kept using the Nahida comp, basically having both Bennett. But I guess the difference is they do have the Sucrose to make sure that they gather every single one. I'm pretty sure this courtyard is just going to blow up like right now, and they're done. They're out.
The leyline disorder for that domain is, of course, buffing overload. So, not only bringing pyro characters to take advantage of that, but also constantly applying Dendro or Nahida to take advantage of Burgeon elemental compositions as well. Plays a big role in increasing the speed of their clear. I did see earlier, Team Sayonara, they're not using Sayu, instead still going for the tall man lineup, while Ancient Engine, they've got a pretty interesting overworld team here.
Yeah, basically really amazing dash skills for the side of for the side of Ancient Engine VN. This is definitely a very different approach versus the Ikemen squad. We've seen this Ikemen squad in round number 1. I guess the difference is that it's with Arataki Ito this time around instead of Child from the previous team.
I'm actually surprised that if you're going to be relying on the size of the tall male character, why the previous team didn't use Ito, because if I'm not wrong, he is actually the tallest character in Genshin by just a little bit over Zhongli, so may as well take
the hair,
every little...
dude.
It's the hair? It's the hair and the horns.
It's the hair and the horn. Yeah, correct. Meanwhile, we've got the all tall women team basically here. Ayaka, Mona, and Yelan. Yelan has to wait for the 2 other teammates so far, as they do have to take a screenshot together.
Yeah, looks like T from Ancient Engine VN does have constellations for Yelan, so you can see there are 2 charges of her elemental skill, which really explains why he is able to arrive at Star Snatch Cliff so much faster than their teammates.
Yeah, just dash in, just use your skill quite fast with the 2 charges, just as you mentioned.
Oh, that was a Eula.
And it really was. That's our first time seeing a Eula in the carnival. Because round 1 and round number 2, while they do have their similar themes, especially the previous round, it has been a Yelan versus Ayato for both of those teams. But for round 3, it's shaping up to be something unique with the Eula coming in.
Yeah, I quite like that as well, because Valley of Remembrance increases physical damage while decreasing enemy physical defense. So using Eula, which is basically the only true physical damage DPS in the game, is pretty matter of fact here, whereas Ancient Engine going for a Ganyu comp here. Also the first time we get to see her in the SEA Carnival.
Yeah, just a lot of really strong charge attacks, especially when you look at her elemental burst, just covers a lot of ground, and you pair that up with a Hydro there, as we saw in the composition, just basically keeping them in place, and then manage that charge attack for that big AoE boom. Boom, 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 boom.
Boom, boom, boom. Yes.
Boom, boom,
Always
boom.
nice to see that big
I don't think that's the sound the Ganyu charge attacks make, though. It just looks like it. It just looks like it.
It just looks like it. We know that that's actually what we're hearing in our hearts. So it's just a frostflake arrow. It looks very dainty. It looks very elegant. But in reality, it's actually a howitzer.
It's pain. Yeah, that's actually
Very
how it
pain.
is. Oh, you gotta love Hazel now being on the field. I think that's our first time too.
Yeah, these teams bringing some very interesting lineups here. Definitely taking a very different approach than what we saw from Team Bebas Day and Gamer Malayu. Instead of having one lineup that they're comfortable with for every domain, they are swapping characters and compositions for each domain challenge. Which, let's talk a little bit about the pros and cons of this kind of strategy, right? On one hand, it can result in faster clears because you have a team that's more optimized for a specific domain. But you can also end up losing a little bit of time actually looking for the character in your list to switch to, because it's not going to be in the same place every time.
Yeah, like the muscle memory, unless you have trained yourself to every specific change, you know where your mouse is going to go for having to roster swap that. So it's going to be interesting. I like the variety though. I really like the progress so far. We're looking at Shinku right now from Team Sayonara. Already at basically at Dragon Spine as they move towards the next part of the challenge.
Yeah, one thing I'm going to be a little bit worried about for the side of Team Ancient Engine is that while their lateral movement across the map is going to be super quick with Ayaka, Moda, and Yelan, they are sacrificing a lot of the speed they would get from climbing that you would ordinarily get from having an animal boy lineup or a tall male lineup.
That's true. Maybe they do want the bonus points of not having the stamina reduction buffs, just to make sure that, you know, if, in case that the seconds, in case that they need more of that bonus. Again, it's a strategy. It's a decision that a lot of these teams will have to do, whether or not they want no bonus points or do they want the bonus points, and see how clear times are going to be calculated at the very end.
We can see here once again, Team Ancient Engine using Ganyu to clear the Ridgewater domain. And this is actually an interesting choice here because I do feel like while Ganyu is a very strong DPS, she's not going to be a very popular pick for the SEA Carnival, mainly because of the fact that she needs to stand back and use charged attacks. And since everyone only has one character, unless they bring a very specific shielder, Ganyu will be quite vulnerable.
Yeah, we even saw an instance earlier, right, where Yelan was frozen in one of these domains and almost a character almost died. So it's one of those things where they have to also consider positioning in some of these domains, which can prove to be dangerous. Now we'll see Xingqiu being the pick, and Ayato now being picked out. I wonder if the Zhongli is going to be staying here for the shield. Looks like that's going to be a no. It's double cryo here on the side of the team.
Yep, it's Team Sayonara going for the double cryo, going mainly for freeze, which is quite interesting. But Hidden Palace of Zo Formula is once again the domain that buffs melt, and since it will naturally apply Pyro Aura, I think that's a pretty good choice from the side of Team Sayonara. Whereas the side of Team Ancient Engine definitely seems to be falling behind. They are only now taking the picture at the Dragon's Core.
Yeah, that's even though Yelan is quite fast reaching some of these screenshot points with the double elemental skill charges. Unfortunately, you gotta be together to make sure to count for it for the screenshot. So even if Yelan's first, gotta wait for your fellow teammates.
I can see here, Team Sayonara, inside the Hidden Palace of Zo Formula. Looks like they either chose not to group the Abyss Mages up with the strategy we've already seen, or they just failed at doing it, not too sure. But they're still able to clear the domain with a fairly good time and move on to their next photo-taking location.
Yeah, it's going to be the Wuwang Hill Peak. We've seen a lot of the previous teams with the Animal Boys just taking advantage of their animal skills to reach these peaks because he's fine. Akito's fine. He got it. He got it. He's fine with his stamina. Whew, that made me sweat a little bit, Staffa.
It's okay. He is the one and only Oni, and he will make it work no matter what. You know? Run out of stamina, it's fine. You know, he's got the extra height from his hair, so he's gonna be able to clear
his
it.
horn. Yeah, it's fine. Meanwhile, Ancient Engine VN trying to work their way here, still towards the Hidden Palace of Zo. A little bit behind, at least, but they do still have to clear this puzzle. Again, teams can switch as long as they for their overworld exploration, just for these certain puzzles. But everything's pretty much fixed for now.
It does feel like Team Ancient Engine took a slightly slower method here, whereas other teams we've seen have swapped multiple characters to clear the puzzle as fast as possible. Team Ancient Engine only allowed their host to switch between Pyro and Geo characters. I imagine that's going to cut into their timing a little bit.
Yeah, as they were still trying to clear that one. So meanwhile, Sayonara already moving on to the basically fifth domain of this carnival. And meanwhile, we'll have to see if Ancient Engine is able to catch up here.
This is going to be a pretty big gap to make up here from Team Ancient Engine. We saw their timers right now are the same, but Ancient Engine are an entire domain behind their fellow roundmates right here. So that's going to be very difficult to make up.
Yeah, considering the fact that, yeah, you're right, it is one domain behind. We can see earlier Ancient Engine working on the fourth. Meanwhile, Sayonara already working on the fifth here with this Kazuha, just gathering in all of these elemental reactions with that swirl. And again, they're done. So basically, if Ancient Engine isn't done yet, then that means the fact that they still have to do the picture taking, which means they're still there. They're still basically there, which means there is a potential of a two screenshot gap, even two landmark gap for this team.
Yeah, it's definitely not going to be ideal. Hopefully, Ancient Engine can get some oil in their gears here and start moving just a little bit quicker. As Team Sayonara right now running away with this. Again, we have to remember, while there are two teams every round, it is not as if these teams are directly competing with one another. We are going to take their total times at the end and compare between all 64 participants. So anything can still happen after the end of this qualifier.
Yeah, considering the fact that, yeah, you mentioned as well, there's still a couple of computations to the scoring. It's not only with the fastest time completed for all of these 11 landmarks and 11 domains, but it's also for teams that decide to do the bonus scoring of not having 5-star characters in a team, or not having stamina reduction bonuses, like the double animal buff that we saw in round number 2.
I do wonder how much those tiebreaker bonuses will really come into play, but that can only really be determined towards the end of the qualifiers when we actually find out who may be going on to the playoffs at Comic Fiesta Kuala Lumpur. Now, one thing that I think we should probably take note of, yes, Team Sayonara are notably ahead of Ancient Engine right now, but this is also the linear section of the domain challenge, which is going to be the section with the most climbing, which with the tall male lineup that Team Sayonara is bringing, they will have the natural advantage. Once we move on into the later sections around Inazuma, around the chasm, there's going to be a lot more running segments, and that could actually be a chance for Ancient Engine to make up lost time.
Yeah, that's true. I think that's the advantage that the Yelan squad can do, especially with the elemental skills that can help them traverse horizontally into these maps. And I think that's the thought process of Ancient Engine, VN. You're onto something, Staffa.
Yeah, but I do wonder whether or not that's going to be somewhat wishful thinking here, because as we can see, Ancient Engine has only just arrived at Clear Pool and Mountain Cavern, whereas Team Sayonara, this is Domain of Guyun. Yeah, they're still a full domain ahead of the other team.
Yeah, they're still keeping up this lead so far, and the way that this is going down, they're really bursting the monsters quite quickly with their composition so far. Look at all of these superconduct procs in this domain here, just quite fast, burning down these shields as well to get that one down.
Now, this is actually a Sino comp as well with Collet and Bennett. That's also the first time we get to see Sino used in the SEA Carnival. So right now, I'm quite big fans of Team Sayonara, purely for the fact that they are using a lot of different lineups.
Yeah, it has been the game of variety so far for Sayonara, just as you mentioned. And I mean, if we compare it to the other teams that we saw, there was a very clear theme on who their main 5-star DPS was. The previous round, we had Yelan and Ayato being the 5-star main DPS. And then meanwhile, for round number 1, while there was a couple of differences here and there, the main story was Nahida being incredibly popular at the very first few instances of the domains that they've been trying to clear.
Well, now we can see Ancient Engine going to be continuing on to their next photo-taking location. Personally, what I find curious about the strategy that Team Sayonara is using, like we mentioned, swapping between team comps based on the domain, is the fact that they have to practice and strategize which team comp is best for each domain, and then they have to either write down or memorize which lineup they're going to bring, because they're not going to waste time discussing like, okay, what character do we bring here? They already know. So I'm just wondering how much time was put into this strategy.
I'm sorry. Zephyr almost fell, but You're right. It is. I was a bit worried there. That was like my heartbeat skipped a bit. But yes,
Okay.
I agree with you there. I bet they have like a notebook on the side with like all 11 domains and basically have a list of the compositions. And here's the thing: the very big difference is that a lot of the content creators we watch, a lot of the content that they dish out are basically just for 4 members, for the interactions of these 4 characters. But the dynamic is so different when it becomes 3 characters in a team. So you gotta maximize what you have with the 3 characters that you have, and I think that's amazing.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's definitely not a limitation you would usually have to think about, but things like that really do make a big difference in how we want to approach these sort of challenges and the SEA Carnival as a whole. As now we can see, Team Ancient Engine, they're prepared to take another photo here around the Mount Aochan Peak. It looks like, once again, T on the Yelan arriving much faster than their teammates, because, again, Mona and Ayaka, while they run pretty fast, not going to have a lot of advantage in terms of climbing because they are the medium female model.
Yeah, that's true. And the fact that you just mentioned as well, the fact that their elemental skill and their dashes are most advantageous on a horizontal pathway, if you will, not the vertical way of traveling, I suppose. But they're almost done with the Liue part of things, so at least they can breathe a little bit better as they will run around Inazuma next.
But what we are seeing here is that Team Sayonara, they're already taking a picture at the Serpent's Head. I believe that is basically now 2 domains ahead of Ancient Engine. And things are looking not so good for our other team there.
Yeah, they've been making really good time. They've been clearing a lot of these domains quite fast. And looking at the comp, it has been the Raiden and Kujinsara that we've seen previously in round number 2. But yeah, it doesn't change the fact that there is a lot of time that they have to catch up to so far in this round number 3.
Well, you never know though. Anything can happen after all. We saw Zhongli nearly fall over there. So if we do see Team Sayonara making a mistake, Ancient Engine can definitely catch up in terms of timing. But right now, what I'm more curious about is whether or not Team Sayonara will actually be able to match up to the timing we saw in round 1 from Genshin Impactors, because right now, their momentum is excellent.
Yeah, if we look at round number 1, it was around the 30-minute mark, with 30 minutes to spare, rather, on the timer. Again, all of these teams have 1 hour to clear all 11 landmarks, all of the domains that are related to the landmarks. And I'm so curious if there's going to be someone that can beat Genshin Impactors, at least for the match, rather, so for the timer that we saw earlier, rather.
Yeah, Team Sayonara, they just cleared Slumbering Court. They're now moving over to Asase Shrine for their photo taking, and that is actually the 8th domain in the Warriors expedition here, meaning that they only have 3 left, and they have like 10 minutes or so to match the timing we saw in round 1.
Yeah, that's a lot of time to spare. It makes me curious if they can make it within 10 minutes. Remember, it is the 30-minute mark. That is the time to beat so far, at least. And they are, after this, they'll have to go to the chasm. And one of the difficult parts are definitely the puzzles that they do have to fly around, climb here and there. And I think that's a lot of where the teams take a bit of time. It's definitely the part where they have to do the overworld exploration.
Yeah, the sprint challenge is definitely going to be the major portion of the SEA Carnival that teams have to really pay attention to. So making sure that you have a strong sprint lineup is absolutely pivotal, especially since you'll never be able to change this lineup throughout your run. And we're already seeing that kind of cost Ancient Engine a little bit, because there's a lot of climbing, not just in SEA Carnival, but in Genshin Impact as a whole. So I'm definitely starting to see how the tall man lineup strategy does seem to be the most balanced strat.
Yeah, we saw that from Genshin Impactors too. It was the Ikemen, it was the Bishi Boys squad as well. I mean, we saw the Animo squad being used, but it feels like this has been definitely like the way to go. And now they're currently on the domain, and they've been making a lot of fast time. Curious to see what the composition is going to be, as it's going to be a Nahida with a double pyro here on this domain.
Yep, this is going to be for Ancient Engine VN. I believe this is the Momiji. No, hold on. I think it's a Slumbering Core. Not too sure. I have to see when the enemies come out. But if they're still taking a little bit more time. This is this is Momiji Diet Core. They are actually really far behind.
Inazuma.
Yeah. While Sayonara, they're already nearly completing the Lost Valley. And they'll be able to move on to Sumeru pretty soon. Right now, Team Sayonara, they're looking to put up a time to beat.
Incredibly fast, and now they're done once more. Like, I think this is the first time we're seeing, a gap between the times. And so far, round 3 is showing the creativity and the diversity in compositions and the approach of these teams. And you gotta love the SEA Carnival being able to showcase, these travelers when it comes to what the optimization and the decision making on what they want for both exploration and as well as the domain clearing.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely was a little bit distracted there earlier when Team Sayonara was clearing the explosives to take the picture, because when we saw other teams clearing the explosive, they were using Tartaglia, shoot them from afar, while on the side of Team Sayonara, they just threw Ushi at it. And I just feel really bad for the little cow guy right now.
They're fine. They're okay. It's the Geo Daddies saving the day. So they're fine. Heels are there. They're fine. We're going to be taking the screenshot now.
I wonder if Ito would actually approve of throwing Ushi at explosives. Because I'm pretty sure.
I don't know why it feels like in character.
I'm pretty sure a lot of us Ito owners have already thrown Ushi at explosives in the past. Like there's just a very satisfying feeling about it,
Speaking from an Ito user, I see.
Yes.
I unfortunately didn't get to roll for Ito, but it's okay. This is not a stream to like cry about not being able to pull Ito. It's fine. Anyway, Raiden and Sarah at it again.
If we keep talking about characters you don't have that I have, I wonder if the chat is going to accuse me of like... The chat is going to like say, oh, Staffa's bullying Riku here. He's flexing.
Yeah. This is like the nth time of saying, oh, I pulled every character in the banner. No worries.
At least you have TT.
Yeah, that's true. I have TT. I'm happy. I have. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I have all of my favorite except Hu Tao that you have. Anyway, let's move on let's move on. Yep, Sayonara making good time. That's what we were talking about. 36 minutes on the clock already as they're making their last few stretches, especially they do in Sumeru. They're making fast time, Staffa.
Yeah, this is actually incredibly fast from the side of Team Sayonara. They are literally 35 minutes remaining in their challenge, and they're already at the final domain, the Spire of Solitary Enlightenment. Remember, the teams we saw in round 2, they took their final screenshot at the 25-minute mark, meaning that Team Sayonara still has 10 minutes before that.
Yeah, and the only final stretch is, the travel to the Sanctuary of Sarastana is a bit of a stretch, and I think that's basically the last challenge, literally the last challenge that these teams in round 3 that have to go through. And so far, so good for Sayonara here on their last stretch, having to get that frozen on the board. Earlier, we were a bit worried it was Yellen in round 2 that was frozen, but this time they're going to be doing it. It's fast! It's so fast!
Wow, we actually saw this exact lineup in round 1. I believe it was Genshin Impactors using the Sucrose Singchu Ayaka, and we're seeing it again from Team Sayonara. Both teams who have put up pretty solid time. So maybe here's a tip for everyone watching at home. If you want to clear the Spire of Solitary Enlightenment, these are the 3 characters you gotta bring.
Yeah, and the fact that it's 3 characters. It's not even 4 characters, it's 3 characters. And they have made the amazing time. And take note, guys, a lot of these domain challenges, they have to choose the highest difficulty of these domain challenges. So they're doing really, really well.
Yeah, they're doing excellently right now. 34 minutes left on the clock, and Team Sayonara are already making their way to the Sanctuary of Surastana. Now, again, this is going to be the longest run, I believe, in the entire SEA Carnival Challenge. You literally have to go all the way back into Sumeru City and climb all the way up. Now, I have noticed that tall characters do seem to have some benefit here, because from what we saw in round 1, where you could just climb onto the roof straight up, I don't think shorter characters are capable of that.
That's why that explains why we haven't seen the baby characters, the Samal characters so far. The Klees, the Chichis, and then the Hidas for overall exploration. It has been either the tall Ikemen boys, or the animal boys, or the tall women like Yelan so far and Rosaria from the compositions that we've seen in round 1 and round 2, and even in this round.
Yeah, that does seem to be the best strategy here. Oh, it looks like Team Sayonara, they're not really climbing on the roof like we saw other teams do. Instead, they're going up the tree itself. Let's see how that does work out for it. Ooh, you're definitely.
Okay.
You're definitely very worried about the Geodaddies.
Yeah, I was so worried. No, because you could tell that he just wanted to manually climb and not spacebar jump it in case that it wasn't enough. So, okay, it was enough. And they decided to just go. Wow, 32 minutes. They have 2 minutes to basically try and see if they can match the Genshin Impactors time. But again, there are 64 teams involved. There are going to be different times. And we'll see how it goes. They're quite close.
Now that it's been a while, I'm really starting to doubt my memory about the timing that Genshin Impactors completed their run here. I know it was at least 30 minutes left on the clock, but I don't remember the precise timing. Team Sayonara, though, 32 minutes left in their challenge, and they're already done. Excellent time right there. Really well played. And for those of you in the chat, do make sure to remind us, how long did it take Genshin Impactors to complete their run?
Yeah, I bet it's a very similar time. Sorry, I got distracted before we transitioned to us. Ito did his I'm gonna comb my hair pose and look cool in front of the sanctuary.
It's just on screen,
Yes, all the Ikemen, the Geodaddies that I love. It's so cute. I love it so much.
But now we're gonna be moving on into our next round, round 4. We've already witnessed 6 teams go through the Warriors expedition here in the Genshin Impact SEA Carnival to vie for those final 8 spots in the finals at Comic Fiesta Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia on the 17th and 18th of December. Now we've got 2 more teams coming up. It is going to be the first Sage of Boer, which is all of us. Spoiler warning for those of you who haven't reached that point. And
What have you done?
Argonomics.
That was a spoiler. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. But this is going to be exciting because after what we saw between round 1s to 3, there has been a lot of variety in decision making in the compositions that they've selected, and it seems to me that there's a lot of impact to so far the domain timings, as we've seen, in the previous match, Sayonara having a huge amount of lead over Ancient Engine here in round number 3.
Yeah, absolutely. We're definitely seeing differences in terms of optimization, in terms of efficiency, and I do like that all of these players are able to discover these sort of strategies while still having fun at the same time. Because you can imagine that all of these travelers are definitely enjoying their time. Yes, definitely, there's going to be some panic, some stress when you're running through. It's like, we gotta get there as fast as possible, but it is all in the spirit of the carnival. And Riku, I gotta ask you, now that we've watched a few teams, like, is there any particular lineup or strategy that you really liked?
Oh my gosh, it has to be definitely the Nahida, the Nahida composition so far. It feels like the Nahida comps start at the very beginning, but then fall off eventually at some of these domains. And it has been the Ayaka show, the Ayato show, or the Yelan show for the last 4 domains.
Yep, if you ask me personally, it was that one team who used Hu Tao on the torch puzzle in the Hidden Palace. That's it. That's all.
A wonderful choice.
Domain challenges, sprint challenges? Nah, it was that one use of Hu Tao on the pyro torches. But now, we're going to be going on into round 4. Let's see what kind of strategies the first sage of Boer and Argonomics will be bringing to the Genshin Impact SEA Carnival.
So excited. I thought I was going to see a Sayu, not on Sayonara because their round is done. But instead, we're going to see, again, for those of you who just joined us on stream, this is basically a speed run where they have to clear domains and go to certain landmarks as fast as they can. It's complete like all 11 domains. And basically it's alternate. Finish a domain, go take a screenshot, and then go to a domain again. And this is a venti comp, and I've never seen this one before from rounds 1 to 3 for a domain challenge.
The Lisa comp from first sage of Boer.
Oh yeah, Lisa!
Oh my
goodness.
Lisa!
I love this so much, Tafa.
Yeah. That. But that's
it's Sayu here. It's Sayu!
It's Sayu! We actually haven't seen you. Oh, we're having a good time right here. That's great. Really nice.
Yeah, it's really nice. The variety that we're seeing in every single round for a lot of these teams. It feels like Yelan seems to be the popular choice in either both domain and overworld exploration. I'm curious to see what the other team, the first sage's team is for the overworld exploration. Be careful, Yelan, you got this. Okay, she's fine.
Definitely gotta manage that stamina very carefully. Marin right now from Argonomics definitely outspeeding their teammates by quite a large margin. Looking at this team lineup here, I'm actually like, this is the sort of composition I was kind of expecting when I first read the rules. I thought everyone would be bringing Yelan and Sayu, piece like Mona and Ayaka. I definitely did not think about bringing the tall male characters just for that extra speed. But it does look like both teams have Sayu on their sprint lineup.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, like looks like it's the elemental skill and as well as the dashes are very important. But looks like they have to wait for Hazel. Again, for the screenshot, all your team members have to be included, and for certain moments, like for example, the 2 NPCs have to be in the screenshot for the Star Snatch Cliff.
Yeah, it does look like both teams do have a player that they're going to have to wait for, because the Sayu and Yelan are actually a shared character choice from both sides, and having Mona and Hazel to fill in the gaps. I do understand the use of Mona on the side of Argonomics, but I do wonder why Hazel was their third overworld character on the side of first stage of Boer, because if they wanted another animal character for that resonance, then Xiao or Kazuha, I feel like would have been way better.
Oh yeah, that's true for the either the animo damage bonus, but we'll have to see. Maybe Heizo is a favorite. Heizo is pretty badass.
Okay, understandable, you know? That's true.
Mhm.
You do have to love the punchy punchy from the
The
punchy man himself.
punchy. Yeah, he's incredibly cool. But so far, we're seeing that the first stage also clearing with Venti once more. It seems to be that is going to be one of their main like animo damage dealer, rather support rather for their composition, because they've been using that twice in a row now versus Kazuha.
Actually, I think if I'm not remembering wrong here, I am actually pretty sure that First Stage of War did not use Venti twice. It was that Argonomics used Venti
It's
in the first
Argonomics.
domain.
Oh, okay.
Yes, because I
Right,
remember the
right.
first domain for First Stage was Lisa. So
Oh yes,
very
yes. Okay, so it's
interesting.
yeah. Both of these
Interesting
teams
domain
love their
choices.
Venti then. Yeah. Because if we looked at round one and round two, the very consistent thing for the early domains is definitely either Sucrose for your Animo or Kazuha for your Animo. And so far, this is seeing Venti for the very first time for round number 4 is a very refreshing thing to see.
Yeah, it's honestly a very interesting choice as well, because as much as I'm sure a lot of us are going to love Venti, I do agree in that if they're going for a 5-star animal, Kazuha would be way better, and a lot of teams use Sucrose so that they can use their 5-star character as a DPS. So the choice of Venti here by both teams now is quite unique.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. Unless their priority is to funnel everyone into one single point, but unfortunately for heavier monsters, it wouldn't really be as effective as they want it to be. But it seems to me, no Venti anymore. It's going to be back to Nahida. But Lisa is still the standout Electro pick so far that we're seeing in round number 4.
First Sage
It's a
of
favorite.
Wood.
Yeah.
They do seem to quite like that Aggravate Hyper Bloom comp with Lisa, which is very interesting because if they wanted to do so, having a character like Fischl would probably still be good. Having application from a lot of the Electro supports would still be viable. So choosing to go for Lisa, I do wonder if there simply is just a Lisa stand here.
Yeah, I think so too. Like, imagine if Oz versus the charge attack of Lisa, and as well as the elemental burst. You know, maybe it is because of their Lisa stan. You know, Lisa is a pretty cool character. Definitely one of the early. You know, when you first started Genshin Impact, definitely one of the first characters you meet. So it's a little bit nostalgic to see Lisa here in round 4.
It's good to see a lot of the different characters in the Genshin roster getting some love here, because I was definitely worried going into the qualifiers that all of the teams would already have decided, this is the most optimal character lineup, and everyone's going to use the same few characters. But that simply isn't the case.
Yeah, it has been a very unique experience for every single round that we're seeing so far, and it's honestly it's very, very refreshing, because you think like it's just because of the diversity that we see, like all of these travelers that come from all over Southeast Asia, and it's just so nice to see these ideas like congregate into this one carnival, into this event, and it's just so nice to see what ideas these travelers have been sharing to us so far. And now we're currently at the I believe the 4th domain into round number 4.
Yep, a very identifiable part of the path at this point. Now that we've already watched several rounds of these teams, I'm pretty sure all our viewers in the comments are already familiar. It's the 4th domain. It's the Hidden Palace of Zoe Formula. Teams got to swap their characters to clear the puzzles and actually get into the domain. We did see earlier, Ancient Engine, they decided to only switch their host character around for the puzzles. So it does look like, at the very least here, First Stage of War, they've all swapped characters to clear the puzzle as fast as possible.
Yeah, cover as much of these pyro torches to make sure that they get triggered. and to solve this puzzle. And so far, it is just the one for ergonomics for Marin. Just as you mentioned, it's going to be D-Look just getting all of these, the puzzle down, and then most likely we'll have to switch later on as they do have to solve. And unlock that Geo puzzle downstairs. Downstairs. No,
Again,
downstairs.
downstairs.
Down.
I mean, it's kind of downstairs.
It's kind of downstairs.
Yeah. Like,
It is-
do you require stairs to be present for it to count as downstairs?
That is a good point. But I feel like stairs are required to say downstairs. I will contradict myself. Yep. It is required, I feel.
I guess that's why the word downhill exists.
Yep. Very true, Staffa. very true.
We're having
Kaya too. Hold
English
on.
101. Oh wow, Kaya!
Yeah, English 101. Yeah. Oh, this is so fun. Like all of these nostalgic Mondstadt characters that we haven't seen in a while are appearing in round 4.
Yeah, and it's not even on the same player as well. Zigzag was the one playing Lisa earlier, and now it's Amoy playing Kaya. Very interesting choices from them, using this to go on into the Hidden Palace of Zou formula. Again, the domain that buffs and melt, so having Cryo, always good, but it's interesting that they've gone for only Kaya as their Cryo application.
Yeah, it seems to me that they wanted to get Singchul on the board as well with Melt Vaporize, I suppose, and just try to get people, get monsters down. Do I want to know the lore? Abyss mages used to be people, right? Anyway, we're not going there.
We don't talk about that here.
We don't talk about
Carnival.
that.
We don't need to
This
talk
is a
about
carnival.
that.
Yep. Yes, we're done with the Hidden Palaces though, and now they gotta go and take that screenshot at the very top of Wuwang Hill Peak. No stairs here. There is a ladder. There is a ladder over there. And so far they're making really good time. I think we can't really say and compare so far between the other teams that we've seen, because things can change. You know, there might be like, oh wow, they cleared this domain really fast, or someone fell as they make their way towards the very top of the peak. So we still don't know until we get to at least the last 2 domains and the last 2 landmarks. That's the time we can comparatively predict and see who will be close in the timers in comparison to the matches that we've seen so far.
Yeah, definitely a lot of variables that'll come into play when the Warriors Expedition path is as long as it is. Here, as we can see now, First Sage of Boar as well as the other side, Ergonomics, going to be climbing up the hill. Their timing looking to be pretty similar. I believe this is going to be the Mount Aotang Peak. No, I believe yes, this is the... Wait, hold on. I'm starting to get confused. No, this is Wuwang Hill, my bad. Wuwang Hill Peak.
Yes.
Yes, and I'm very interested because, as we could see, both teams have Sayu for the first time in the Carnival, and the whole reason why we haven't been seeing the chibi characters so far is because they would climb really slow.
Yeah, I actually thought that when you use the chibi characters, they jump pretty high to make up for their height, lack of height. But I guess there's a trend of most of the Ikemen characters, the tall guys or the tall women, being used for the climbing, especially the climbing part of things as their overworld exploration. But this is the first time we're seeing a chibi character model being used. Look at them. They're gonna gather everyone near. Yep.
Oh.
There it is.
An interesting choice here from First Sage of War. They're still using the gathering mechanic here, but instead of facing the corner, they're actually facing the other side of the domain. So there is still that risk of the Abyss Mages not ending up where they need to be, but it did work out for them in the end, whereas Ergonomics looks like they will be facing the corner instead, and both teams going to be using pretty similar strategies to take down the triple Abyss Mage from the Clear Pool and Mountain Cabin.
Yeah, you're right. Similar strategy, especially using Kazuha there. Gather everybody up and get that elemental things down. And so far, so good for both of these teams. We're not seeing a gap so far. With there are some teams that get a little bit stuck on the hidden place, Palace of Zou, and I think that's the first like true trial for this the entirety of the 11 landmarks that they have to visit. So I think that's clearly where we see most of the teams like diverse when it comes to the timer.
I'm just getting very distracted by Sayu's ears and tail bouncing around.
Sayu.
It's very distracting because it's very cute. And it's just like, what were we talking about again? I'm watching
Yeah,
a
yeah.
OTV in a tanuki costume rolling around the place.
It's so cute. I know. Tell me about it. Oh, got stuck a little bit there. It's no problem.
bit.
Was able to just a little bit, but they're fine. First stage of viewer is they're absolutely fine. But they're making their way already to, I believe, Mount Aotang Peak, or did I get distracted and I counted the peaks wrong?
Now, I believe that should be correct. If the previous one was Wuwang Hill, then it should be Mount Achang next. Unless like they haven't been to Wuwang Hill yet, but I do believe that both teams are on a fairly close progress in terms of their clear speed. Yep, I believe this is Mount Aochang. They're going to be taking a picture next to the crane statue. That is the point of interest for this particular location. And all things considered, I don't think Sayu is doing too bad a job of climbing, but definitely going to be the last one to arrive when it comes to these big hills and mountains.
Yeah. I mean, it's still so adorable when you see the Sayu player jumping up and down. But you're right. Very similar for Argonomics as they make their way themselves to Mount Aotang Peak with the Sayu in as well. But it looks like they're going in together as one with the same and similar pace. But the next domain should be Guyan. The domain of Guyan, yes, correct. For the next domain, I'm excited to see what the composition is going to be because has been a little bit different of the approach so far when it comes to this domain as well.
Yeah, we have already seen two teams use the Raiden Shogun Kujo Sara combination for this domain specifically.
Oh.
But we've also seen teams go for Mono Pyro with Yoimiya. Here we can see first stage of Boar going for Vaporize with Yoimiya, as well as Bennett, which is again risky because they will take damage from the domain when activating Melt and Vaporize.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's they're pretty low at the moment, but with Bennett and Singcho in the team, I suppose they're going to be fine when it comes to sustain. But yeah, just as you mentioned, Argonomics has that approach when it comes to the Kujosara and Raiden Shogun instead as well for this part of Guyan, the domain, able to mash through, and they're pretty fine. I think they're okay.
Yeah, I think they can definitely clear pretty quickly here. Definitely Pyro will still work through the Cryo Abyss Mage shields more quickly. But in exchange, we did see Argonomics take down the Ruin Hunter with impressive timing. So I think overall the clear speeds are going to be pretty close. But from what I can observe, it does look like Melt is actually the way to go here.
Yeah, I mean, it has. I mean, they do have that Electro and as well as that Cryo with that Superconduct, but unfortunately, the Abyss Mage was too stubborn. I wouldn't say they struggled in breaking the shield, but compared to the earlier performance, it seemed pretty fast. But I feel like it's the risk that comes with it. Just as you said, we saw them taking a bit of damage, but they're able to clear very, very fast.
It's a bit of a risk for reward fallacy here, where if you want it to be faster, you use Pyro, but you gotta make sure that you have enough healing to deal with it. And if you want to be safer, you use the Ley Line Disorder and go for Superconduct. But we already saw that does end up being slower than going for a Melt composition. So these are all small choices that these teams have to make for every single domain that they go through here in the Warriors Expedition.
Yeah, and we notice a lot of the teams, especially the US, the most challenging vertically because you have to climb all of these tall peaks and mountains and rocks. So I think a lot of the teams, aside from the Hidden Palace of Zou, where we see a bit of a gap and see what the difference is when they solve these puzzles before they enter the domain. I think Liyue is the game changer, I suppose, where we see most of these gaps in time for the teams that we see.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there. And you can definitely see the benefit of having the Ikemen lineups in Liyue specifically. because of just how much height they can clear when they are climbing these tall cliffs and mountains. Like if you were to compare the amount of room that is created when, let's say, someone like Zhongli jumps while climbing with Sayu while climbing, it's probably near double the distance.
Yeah, the TV characters have to jump a little higher to cover the same ground. But yes, they're done with the geohypostasis peak, so now they're going to move into Inazuma with Momiji Dyed Court. And there has been, what do you call this? A lot of Nahida comps come into play around this area, so we'll see what the approach is for ergonomics as they enter Momiji.
Yep, still 41 minutes left on the timer for the side of ergonomics as they go into Momiji Dyed Court. This is, of course, the domain with the flame and frost boons. Looks like they are taking advantage of that. Whereas on the side of the first stage of Boer, they're actually just slightly ahead. They've already completed the Momiji Dyed Court, now moving over to the Serpent's Head to take their photo.
Sorry, I was just distracted like you two. The way Sayu just jumps and takes little hops is so adorable. Yes, they're gonna be fine. They won't get Sayu. Please don't get hit by the lightning as you take a photo. Be safe. Be safe, Pillow. They're fine.
It would be hilarious if one of these teams got hit. Oh my god, that's literally. I was literally about to say, if one of these teams got hit by lightning while taking a picture. And wow, okay.
This is why we don't call it too soon. This is why it's not we don't call it too soon. Because we called it. We're like, oh, they're fine.
The caster curse around here.
Yeah. Yep, it's the caster curse. Oh dear. We
Luckily they were able to actually finish taking the photo. Otherwise that could have been disastrous.
Yeah, it really would be. And it seems that they're still making good time. It didn't affect them too much for couple of seconds, but I mean we keep saying that every second will count, considering that again it's the top 8 fastest times that will make it to the playoffs of the Genshin SEA Carnival at Comic Fiesta on December 17 to 18. So it's going to be incredibly exciting to see where these 64 teams will fare, and only top 8 can go.
And it's honestly so scary to think about, because you imagine that when you base their qualification on the total time taken, it could be wildly different. Like the gap between 8th and 9th place could be as much as 2 or 3 minutes, or it could be 2 or 3 seconds. So it really does mean every single second makes a difference.
Yeah, that's why you can't fall and while you do the climb. You can't. Well, I think falling is like one of the most heartbreaking things that you could see here in the overworld exploration part, the sprinting challenge. So, yeah, so far we haven't seen. There was an almost the Zhongli almost falling at the geostasis peak, but he's fine. They're fine. They're okay.
Well, as we speak, ergonomics still making pretty alright time here. They're now in the slumbering court, going for a hyper bloom lineup with Nahida. Like you mentioned, teams do seem to like going for the Nahida lineups in the Inazuma domain specifically, taking advantage of that EM, that extra elemental reaction to take down these big groups of enemies. So far, their timing, while a little bit slower than that of Sayonara from last round, they're still making pretty good time.
Yeah, really fast. I mean, I think Dendro and Electro is safe to say that is one of the favorite interactions, or sorry, reactions so far, with just a lot of damage output, especially with the debuff that you activate towards your opponent's side from the damage multiplier. So yeah, that's probably why we get to see a lot of these Nahida compositions. I like how Sayu Pillow rearranged themselves like multiple times. That screenshot, that's adorable.
Yeah, I think we're definitely getting quite taken with Sayu on the side of first stage of Boer. Especially since the player's name is Pillow as well. It just feels so soft.
Yeah! It's so soft and fluffy and cute. It's just so perfect. I hope since we still do have another round coming up. We get to see more of the chibi characters in play for overworld exploration. Is just so imagine the 3 chibi characters going through the sprinting challenge. I think that's going to be adorable.
I mean, it's adorable, but it's also going to be very slow, which is the unfortunate fact of the matter. In the end, you wanna speed run as fast as possible to try and be in the top 8. But maybe there is a team out there who they're just like, well, we could go fast, but we could also go cute, and maybe that's better.
Yeah. Yeah, that's gonna be a statement if ever that doesn't happen. But looking at Marin here, the first to already reach the shrine, basically having to wait for the teammates. Oh, Mona just pops right into the screenshot. Nicely done. Yep. As they move towards Chasm first. I got a little bit excited there. Last stretch for both of these teams with 36 minutes to spare. I do remember in round number 3, during 36 minutes, they were already in Sumeru, I believe. So this is going to be interesting how fast and how will they fare, both of these teams versus the other few rounds that we saw.
Yeah, it's actually kind of ridiculous now that we're seeing other teams run how fast Sayonara was progressing through the challenge. Because, yeah, like you said, they were already in Sumeru at this point. They completed the challenge with 34 minutes left. So if they are not in the top 8, I will be very surprised.
Yeah, because we've basically seen some of the what do you call this? The standard of time that we're going to be expecting these teams to play out. Again, I love this Lisa, by the way. I know we talked about the Dendro and Electro reactions already, but having to see that 4-star Lisa versus the Fischl versus the Saris that we see before, that's really nice. It's nostalgic. It's very, very nostalgic.
Yeah, we can see ergonomics as well. They're also going for Hyper Bloom here, but instead of Lisa, they have brought Cookie Shinobu. I do feel like, admittedly, Lisa may have slightly better Electro application, but Cookie Shinobu also provides the advantage of giving more elemental mastery and, of course, providing healing as well if things go south. So, individual preferences.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, with Lisa, you may not have the ability to move the lamp, but if you know the enemies are just going to be staying put in one area, then I suppose the elemental burst of Lisa will do quite well in general to be able to get those reactions on the board with your Nahida. And now it's picture time!
Yep, we're going to be taking it right. Say cheese. Are they gonna? Yep, there we go. Cheese right there. Except we can't see any of the characters' faces.
Yeah.
Which of course is not a problem. Just to let you guys know, the character faces being in the shot is not a necessity. Otherwise, the teams we saw earlier who constantly had the Ikemen facing backwards would also not count.
yeah. That was a very cute trend with the Ikemen facing their backs against the screenshots. But yeah, as long as they get to screenshot the actual location scene that they're supposed to take, everything's fine. Everything's good.
Yep, we can see here ergonomics also making their way over to the Chasm's Maw. And you can see a very interesting difference in the way they're approaching it, where a few members of the first stage of war glided over to the seal. Because Marin here is using Yalan, it is better to actually plunge to the ground first and use the elemental skill to get here quicker.
Yeah, it's just so much faster.
I love it.
Mary loves living in the edge. Yeah, it's just too close. The slow walk towards the edge, that's pretty extra. I think that's a statement right there. Yeah,
it would actually be devastating if they fell over this, because it would be so difficult to get back up.
It really would be. There's no animal characters to save you and just fly about. But we are close to the final stretch, guys. We are last two, I believe, with the with the Sumeru region being the very last. And I'm so curious to see. With 32 minutes left, though, I don't think they can make the 30-minute mark. 32 minutes was was basically the finish for the round 3 team. So we'll see what time will they finish this carnival.
I think it's still a pretty solid performance. Is that Hu Tao? You are going, yes. Okay, yes, we got a Hu Tao.
Oh my gosh, you must be so happy.
We got a Hu Tao.
Yeah, I'm so happy for you.
Okay,
Let's go.
my life is fulfilled. I have no more regrets. I can. I saw a Hu Tao. I saw a Hu Tao for a domain. That is all I need.
You're happy. You're settled. You're good.
Yeah.
Okay, so now the only thing left for me is to see a Zhongli in a domain, but I don't think that's going to be the case because you want to maximize the reactions that you have. That's why we're seeing a lot of hydro, cryo instead of having a geo support. It's a little bit difficult. You want to maximize damage. So I'm not going to get my hopes up for Zhongli to appear in any domain. I know I've already gotten it from overworld explorations, but yeah, it's okay. I understand. It's about optimizing the damage. I understand.
Yeah. That is, unless someone were to decide to bring like DPS Zhongli or something like that. But I'm not sure if that's really, I'm not sure if that's really worth the risk.
Don't be like me. I forced my Zhongli to be main DPS. Don't be like me. I basically stole his sun's spear and put my primordial jade spear onto Zhongli and just tried to auto attack. But I'm like, this doesn't work. I'm so sorry. I tried to force it. Yeah, don't be like me, guys, in the chat. Stealing the spear away from Smile.
I'm pretty sure there's definitely people in the chat who have actually built very impressive DPS Zhonglis, right? Like, I've definitely seen people who just drop hundreds of thousands of damage off the meteor, you know?
Please teach me, chat. Please teach me. I will try again. Oh dear.
But now we can see, right now that we are right under the 30-minute mark, the first stage of Boer, they're going to be making their way over to Sanctuary of Surastana so that they can greet Boer themselves. I think that the other side, Argonomics, going to be not too far behind first stage of Boer as well. So they're definitely not going to be beating the time of Sayonara or Genshin Impactors, but still putting up a pretty good performance so far.
Yeah, this is quite neck and neck for both Argonomics and first Sage of Boer. It's like really, really close. They're both at the 29-minute mark as they make their way towards Sumeru. I do believe, though, that the first Sage is more closer to the main parts of Sumeru around the 29-minute mark. So I'm curious to see how close the seconds are between these two teams, actually.
Yeah, I personally have a little bit of bias now. Sorry, guys, I'm no longer an impartial caster. First Sage of Boer used Hu Tao in a domain, so I want them in play.
That's how it works. I see.
That's how it works. Yeah. Hu Tao first, fairness second.
Okay. I mean, fair. You have built Hu Tao as your main composition and basically built around her. So I understand. I understand.
Yep, but now we can
they're
see
quite close now, though.
They're making their way very close. I do think First Sage of Boer should be able to complete their challenge within the next minute or so. So that should be quite comfortably around the 27-minute mark. I'm going to have to see exactly what the progress on Argonomics is. But I'm going to say just between these two teams, First Sage of Boer seems to be having the better time here. As we now see Pillow going to reach the final member to participate in the photo. And I believe that is going to be the end of round 4 right there.
Yeah, it's 27 minutes, which is not the same timer as we've seen with Genshin Impactors and Sayonara, but still pretty good time before around the 27-minute mark.
Yeah, but with that, we're going to be getting into our final round, the final two teams that we will get to watch here on the Genshin Impact SEA Carnival Qualifiers live stream. Now, I know what you guys might say. There were 64 teams participating. We only got to see like around 10. That's because there's no way we're going to be able to watch all 64. So we've selected a few here. And these are going to be the last two teams. It's going to be Team Blue Rats and Team Ring a Bell.
Yeah, right now it's confirmed that there's a lot of variety with these compositions, like characters that we didn't even expect to appear. Like we saw Lisa and Kaya previously that we've never seen between rounds 1 to 3. And I'm so excited to see all of these unique picks. Like even though the idea is there, it's the same it's the same reactions and concept of these reactions interacting, but it's different characters, and I'm excited. Maybe there is still a chance for me to see a Zhongli comp in a domain. Maybe. I don't know.
You never know, right? We see the big meatball one shot in a domain. I think that would make a lot of people very happy.
Yeah. I hope. We'll see.
All right, but with that, let us head on into round 5 of the final round for the qualifier live stream today. And let's see how we're going to close things out. We have here on screen right now Team Blue Rats heading into Midsummer Courtyard. Going to be using a Hyper Bloom squad, while Team Ring a Bell going for a... I don't know if that's a mistake right there. There's only 2 players in the domain. Okay.
Oh.
Their last player was just a bit slow.
Okay, yeah. Like it's a surprise, but not really a surprise. But either way, we get to see Arcadia Blue Rats already starting, just as you said, the Hyper Bloom. They do have Electro as well with their reaction, so most likely with a spread or aggravate here, just for that damage output.
I do feel like the overall progress is a little bit slower than we're used to, but still a pretty good clear time 1 minute in. Whereas Ring a Bell definitely going to be a little bit delayed because their final player, I don't know if they loaded in a little bit too slowly, but that's definitely going to cost them.
Yeah, it is. It is still the Kazuha Elemental Burst still available, so they're going to be using that on the very last monster, as we'll get to see them clear. But yeah, you're right. It feels like, not a rough start for both of these teams, but at least at the very beginning that this is the setter.
So we can see here now that we actually get a chance to look at these teams' overworld exploration lineup. We're seeing a little bit of combination. 2 of the Animal Boys, Kazuha and Xiao, along with Yelan. Looks like Yelan going to be a pretty notable presence among most of these teams' overworld team compositions.
Yeah, Yelan, I think, is the most standout characters so far, not only in domain runs but also in sprint runs. As you pointed out earlier, it is very the elemental skill and as well as the dash is just so important, especially if you have 2 charges. You will reach these points, these landmarks quite fast, but you still have to wait for your teammates before you take that screenshot.
Yeah, that's always the unfortunate fact. We have to remember you are not allowed to repeat characters on any lineup. That includes domains and the overworld lineup. Therefore, we can't just have 3 Yelans running around. So even if Yelan arrives very quickly, still gotta wait for the rest of the team. And I saw as well that Team Blue Rats actually has the exact same overworld trio as Team Argonomics from round 4.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's still it's really quite helpful. You do have the animal buff, the impetuous winds for stamina consumption and as well as the movement speed. So it's going to be very important for the timer, especially if the last stretch where the climbing parts where of Liyue, basically just a lot of mountains to climb, and as well as the last few parts of Sumeru where there's a lot of running around to do. So like this animal approach by the team.
Now, going on into the second domain, Valley of Remembrance, we are seeing Team Blue Rats, again, sticking with the Hyper Bloom squad. I think this is overall going to be a very strong universal lineup, because since Dendro did not exist as an element during the earlier days of Genshin Impact, a lot of the earlier domains are going to be very neutral to Dendro reactions.
Oh yeah, that's true. They were definitely made the early, like especially the Mondstadt domains were definitely made for the early characters. And yeah, Dendro wasn't a part of the rosters up until Someru, up until recently. So it's just a few years in until we saw the new reactions that Dendro came into the table.
I gotta ask you here, now that Dendro has arrived after all the waiting, do you have a favorite Dendro reaction because of just how many types of Dendro reactions there are?
I think for me, I think the safest choice for me, it's definitely the Dendro and the Electro reactions, just because there was a lot of hype, and since Electro was definitely overshadowed by a lot of the Pyro characters. Since I love Electro so much, Kaching, I was a Kaching main. When when the Dendro reactions came along, I'm like, oh wow, finally, it's my time to shine for Kaching. So I pulled for Tainari. I got Tainari, so I'm pretty happy about that one.
That's pretty nice. I feel like that's like the third character now that you say you don't have.
Yeah.
I think I was pretty similar to you in that I was also a Kaching main. She was my first 5-star as well, so I definitely really loved Aggravate when Dendro first came out. But now, my favorite has to be Bloom, specifically Bountiful Bloom, because Nilu just makes everything explode.
Oh yeah, when she bursts, she literally is a burst. Like she bursts everyone. Yep. I saw videos. I don't own Nilo, so I gotta like watch videos. And she's insane. Her damage is absolutely insane. Her burst is so pretty too.
Lots of fun too. She's basically like Klee in terms of destructiveness, but less chaotic.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, it's more elegant. The approach of Nilo is definitely more elegant, and it makes me wonder. Like, I don't know if we'll ever get to see Nilo in some of these domain runs, because definitely you want Nahida as your main 5-star. Just because I can't imagine what maybe Kole for your 4-star as your Dendro, and then you have Nilo too. But I don't think Kole is a good procer of all of these Dendro effects. Doesn't cover a lot of ground as Nahida, which is basically everything in the room.
Our good old Dendro Archon, just a little bit too universal, overshadowing all the other characters. But yeah, that is unfortunate. Definitely not going to see characters like Nilu around because their team building just a little bit too restrictive. Like you say, you need Nahida as well. A lot of teams might need like Kokomi to run with her. So it's a bit difficult. But I do like that there has been a good variation of characters so far.
What has been your most standout so far now that we've seen 4 rounds in total?
Definitely the most memorable is going to have to be Sayonara because of just how quickly they were able to clear through the domains and how they had a specific lineup for every domain. And of course, I don't remember which team it was, which is kind of blasphemous, which used the Hu Tao to clear this puzzle specifically. But yeah, that too.
Oh yeah! Isn't it the first Sage of Bure that did Hu Tao? Or I may be wrong.
First Sage of Bure did Hu Tao in the domain. I'm referring to the other team from earlier.
The other team. Okay. Yes. On the puzzle.
Remind me in the comments which team that was.
We'll find out. We'll see what the chat says. But yeah, we are already moving on not far away, but we're moving towards the harder parts of the overworld exploration, which is Liyue. A lot of these hills, a lot of these peaks, and we keep talking about, hidden place of Zhao is where people get stuck-ish because of the puzzle part, and see how they maximize. Do you want all Pyro characters, or do you want just one Pyro character activating all of these torches to open the Geo puzzle? So we'll see what the approach is. It's double Pyro, it seems like. All of these ranges to reach through the torches versus the melee where you have to manually walk into those torches. So I like this approach coming from Blue Rats.
Yeah, I think definitely the most efficient approach is to have double Pyro Archer and one Geo character to activate things, because it does just make it that much quicker. We did actually see Klee being used to clear the puzzle as well, which I think is the first time we've seen Klee in the challenges so far. Not too sure we'll get to see her in a domain, but always nice to see this little agent of chaos running around.
Yeah, another adorable chibi character.
Yep.
As they do have to clear some of these monsters before they enter, I suppose, so they don't get
Yes.
disrupted.
It is actually necessary. It's like part of the challenge to clear the monsters, get the puzzle, go into the domain, which is why we see the Hidden Palace of Zo Formula going to end up being the biggest time spent for most of these teams.
Yeah, it's such a huge time eater, the hidden place of Zo. And I think this is where most of the teams deviate when it comes to time. Like a lot of these teams are very similar, very close prior to that, but this is the first trial, I suppose.
Indeed, you can see.
A little bit worried there. His Bennett got knocked out. Yeah.
I think it's fine though, as long as Ayato is able to DPS, because all Bennett really needs to do is drop down his ultimate, and then any extra damage from him is just a bonus. It all comes down to making sure your main DPS is able to constantly output that DPS in the first place, and in this case, Blue Rat's going to be using Ayato, definitely a popular character we saw earlier in the stream as well.
Yeah, especially when paired with Bennett and Xingqiu. I think this is one of the more popular trios that is very consistent in all throughout the rounds, aside from the Nahida comp at the very beginning. And it's nice to see the return. We know that a lot of the Nahida comps start from the very beginning and then appear a little bit once the Inazuma, mainly towards the Slumbering Court for damage output. And now we see Ring a Bell, Winfield still trying to get the puzzle down first before anything else, as Blue Rats already has begun their domain.
Oh, this Chichin is wasting so much time for it. Like, I do think they are actually waiting to clear things out before they can actually head into the domain, and that is definitely going to be a lot of time wasted from them. As we can see, the same timer for Blue Rats, they've already completed the Hidden Palace. They're heading over to the Wuwang Hill Peak for their photo op.
Yeah, that's why it's so important that you're right. It's the little electro insects from the Chichin that's so you don't know where they are sometimes, and sometimes they teleport, and sometimes they're far. So you gotta like keep your eye open for those things.
I think that's like
I can imagine the fly sounds, like the fly SFX.
The fly sound. Yeah, I
The
think
fly
that's extra
sound, that's how I
value as
imagine
well
them.
for archer characters, right? Because
Right.
like if you were to bring Yalan, it would be very easy for her to just take out the Chichins because all the arrows are just going to auto target. And even if you were to like swap to Amber or Yoimiya to get the torches,
Yeah.
they would also help as well.
Yeah, you don't have to go near them to actually like destroy them, and you can scout to see where they are. You're right, Staffa. Meanwhile, Ring a Bell now starting their domain here, and it has been a double hydro, actually a triple hydro here for their squad against all of these pyro monsters, and it's working out pretty well for them.
Yeah, we already saw this exact lineup earlier from one of the other teams as well. I can't quite recall which one it was, but it definitely was one. Having all this hydro definitely helps in this domain specifically because, like you mentioned, all of the enemies are pyro. So being able to clear that quickly does make a big difference. As we can see, Team Blue Rats, they've already completed their imp picture on Wuwang Hill. Now they gotta head over to Clear Pool and Mountain Cavern.
Wait, did someone fall? Because they took the
Someone
screenshot.
Oh no, okay, yes.
Oh, no,
Basically,
no. I
the
thought
whole
someone fell.
yeah. Okay, for a moment there, I was wondering whether someone TP'd away too quickly, but no, they already got the picture. The host just TP'd to the next place and invited them over to save time on them having to teleport over too.
That's fair. That's fair. Oh,
That was like
my
an
bad. I
awkward
thought that
moment of
was
silence.
yeah, yeah. That they were just standing there for the photo. Yeah. Anyway, the strat again to summon all the Abyss Mages into one spot. Are they lacking one more? Oh no, there's the other one. Okay, I thought
It was just
they
a
missed
little
one.
bit late to the party. The
Yeah, they're
last
fine.
Abyss
They're fine. They don't corner
Mage
them.
missed the first bus.
Yeah. Looks like it. It seems like it. But it's no problem. They're able to get that one last, and it's over. They're moving on towards Mount Aotsang Peak already for their screenshot. Meanwhile, Ring a Bell just about to take their screenshot at Wuwang Hill. peak, which means they are potentially one domain behind, actually, versus the other team.
And that is quite unfortunate here, considering that their progress until now has been pretty even. We can see taking a little bit of time here while waiting for the rest of his teammates to arrive, eating some food, topping up on that HP. Definitely don't want to risk having your character get taken out at some point during the journey.
Oh yeah, we've seen a couple of close calls already. Basically, we saw one Yelan run, not in the overworld exploration, but more of the domain run, where they got knocked up like twice into being frozen. So you don't want that to happen, and want to make sure that you have enough health to, just in case you actually get you actually get hit by one of the monsters. Yeah, that was super scary. You saw Arcadia slide a little bit.
Yeah, that's sliding right there. That's why you don't wear high heels while climbing a mountain.
Well, that's why she has the elemental skill to like just skip through all that. Even though she's wearing heels, she looks fabulous while running around with elemental skill.
Definitely a very impressive thing, considering that most Genshin characters, the females especially, wear high heels. So the fact that all of them are capable of climbing mountains is like, props to them.
Yeah, definitely props to them. The fact that Yelan always comes first in these hill climbs is just very impressive in general.
Absolutely, and unfortunately, that's stamina. That's quite risky. He actually makes that last jump too. That's kind of interesting. His two teammates actually took the gust of wind up the mountain, and he didn't.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I wonder. That's true. That's true.
Did he forget? Was he just confident?
It could be just. Yeah, maybe it could be just confidence. I mean, the time that his teammates arrived isn't too far of a gap when it comes to the second. So I guess it's fine. Considering that Yelan, when we see all of these compositions of our sprint challenges, the Yelans are always first because of the elemental skills. So maybe that was maybe that was the thought process.
Yeah, it's probably most likely the case that the Yelan already arrived at the mountain and the teammates were far behind enough that it would be better to just climb it rather than wait for Sayu to arrive to activate the windmill. Ooh, I don't even know how did that even happen? Wait, how did he not get hit by that?
Yeah, that was some iframes right there. Kazuha. Kazuha doing his magic. Right yeah, Kazuha acrobatics. I was so worried, especially ran out of stamina and couldn't dash to safety.
Well, ignoring Kazuha acrobatics for now, we are seeing Team Blue Rats moving on into the next domain here. I do believe that this is the domain of Guyun. Once again, going to be going for that Raiden Shogun Electro lineup, so not taking the risk on the melt comps that we've been seeing a lot of other teams go for.
Oh yeah, we do see the double pyro, just as you said last time, but yeah, it is a bit risky versus the Raiden Kujosara composition. A lot of these being conducted in the composition. I'm sorry, that was bad, but that was bad.
I think we could have ignored it if you just let it play out.
I know, but I heard it after I said it, and I'm like, I have to call myself out there. Call myself out. Yes, so that has been the more popular comp, the Kujosara Raiden, every time it's on the Guyan domain. But well, now they're going to have to go to the Geo Hypostasis Peak for that screenshot, and the tougher levels when it comes to the overworld exploration with a lot of climbing is about to be over, since Liyue does have a lot of these very tall mountain peaks.
Yep, and so far, it does look like Team Blue Rats are having a pretty comfortable lead over the side of Team Ring a Bell. As you mentioned, they're now heading over to the peak above the Geohypostasis, while Team Ring a Bell have only just teleported over to the domain of Guyun. So, we will have to see how this pans out once we head on further into the journey.
Yeah, I think the most important points whenever we see these teams compete, we talked about the Hidden Palace of Zou as a big turning point for times, and I feel like the next one should be when the last two basically landmarks come along, and we're going to be seeing the gaps basically. Okay, Yelan.
Yeah,
we
you'll
got
make
this.
it. That's fine.
Yep. Yeah. We'll make it. Yeah,
Interestingly
basically,
enough,
those
the
are the
last
two
one of the
important
mountain this
points.
time.
Yep.
But yeah, I think so far, Team Blue Rats making pretty alright time. That is the 6th domain on the path, so they are halfway done. And with 40 minutes left on their timer, I get the feeling they are not going to be beating the times we saw from Sayonara and Genshin Impactors. But let's see whether or not they can match the timing we saw in round 4.
Yeah, so far with the rounds that we've seen, at least from rounds 1 to 4, yeah, the standard is 32 minutes and 1 second for Sayonara. And I think that could be potentially the earliest time we're seeing, at least from rounds 1 to 4. So we'll see if the teams here for round number 5. Oop! Yeah, they're fine. They're fine. I feel like this team. I feel like Ring a Bell is a team that has drawn the most aggro outside of the domains. At least it's just so it's entertaining to watch.
I think it's more of a case where like all teams are drawing that much aggro. It's just the team Ring a Bell seems to have more close calls than the other teams.
No, yeah, that's true. Okay, fair. They have more close calls. Yeah. It's just so entertaining to see how they dodge a lot of the close calls that they encounter outside of the domains, and they're doing fine so far.
Yeah, definitely don't need to worry about them so far. But we're definitely seeing a bit of a trend now that we are in our final round of the qualifiers being streamed, that overall, the average time being taken by these teams to clear the entire Warriors expedition is typically somewhere around 35 minutes, with the quickest teams completing it just under 30 minutes or so. Therefore, I'm wondering how well these two remaining teams will be able to match up to that. And personally, I am quite impressed because going into this, like before all of this, before the qualifier started, before we got to watch all of these players participate, I definitely would have thought that 30 minutes was a bit too quick.
I agree with you. When we first saw Genshin Impactors in round number 1, it was like, wow, they have 30 minutes to spare. Everybody has 1 hour to complete all of these 11 sets of challenges, and yet they have 30 minutes to spare. So, wow, these teams are doing these domains like really, really fast. And considering the fact that, again, we're talking about this isn't a full 4 roster. This is 3 players. So the dynamic and the reactions and the ones that you want to optimize and keep is a lot. There's a lot of optimization going on with the 3 characters that you have to just use.
I think what's quite interesting as well and very fun to think about is the fact that I think a lot of the teams participating in the SEA Carnival as well aren't necessarily already a fixed group of 3 friends, because when I looked at the posts about opening a SEA Carnival and asking for people to participate and sign up, I did see a lot of people in the comments and in the Discord looking for teammates, which means that I think a lot of these teams did not know each other before these challenges began.
Oh, that's so cute. That means, it's again forming a bond with the community, and I think that's really nice. It's all of these travelers meeting for the first time to basically do the carnival together. I think that's so cute. Also, sorry, Dory for the very first time. I had to just say it. Okay, I'm done.
Yeah, I did see that, but for some reason it just didn't register in my brain at all. Yeah, that is the first time we got to see Dory there. So again, another new character added to the ranks, and I personally love to see more new characters, not just like I cast other games regularly as well, and I just like seeing when teams and players bring stuff that's out of the norm, stuff that you don't see often, because it just adds that much more variety and fun to the overall experience.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. I mean, typically we see a lot of the typical Singcho and Bennett being the primary supports of the main 5-star DPS, but seeing Dory as a support is still Electro and Dendro reaction here. But I love to see the variety that we're seeing. We basically went through You know what's surprising? We basically went through almost all of the 4-star Electro, and Fischl seems to be not as popular
That's
as
true.
we've seen throughout the entire rounds. Even though on paper, she's extremely very popular, a very popular Electro 4-star character.
That is actually an interesting observation. Yeah, you do mention that correctly. Official, probably one of the best Electro 4-star supports. I'm gonna make an assumption here because I'm not too sure. I don't play co-op all that often, but there is a chance that Official Oz only attacks on her own attacks instead of that of her teammates, so it may not quite work out as well as it would ordinarily in single player situations, but I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure if I'm wrong, the comments are letting me know right now. It's like, I'm sure there's going to be comments like, Official activates on everything. This caster doesn't know what he's talking about. Yes, I don't.
Pretty good assumption. Yeah, either way, that's a very, very good assumption. I mean, I think I'm with you. I'm with you on this one as well. Considering the fact that we're seeing a lot of these other Electro 4-star characters popping up, and Dory is definitely one of the unique ones. Especially, it's I suppose like a single buffer. I suppose so. It's really a nice change of. It's refreshing, rather.
I just personally really love Dory's auto attack chain because it's so
Oh
cute.
yes,
The little
slime.
the little Jin.
Yeah, the little Jin is so cute. Oh, I love how she like sings about money. I don't know how the song goes in the Japanese dub, but it's so cute. Dory's just cute.
You should listen to the Japanese dub. It's so unhinged.
Yeah.
It's way more unhinged than the English dub, which is already kind of unhinged.
Yeah. Oh, imagine the what do you call this? The idle anime. You just put Dory on idle like all day, and that's just what you hear. Just so cute.
I feel like if you were to listen to it a bit too long, though, it could be used as a form of.
Like if you want to annoy like some of your co-op teammates,
I think
your
I
friends.
feel like if you listen to that long enough, you're not gonna come out the same person anymore.
Yeah, Dory is just so lovable. But looking at the time now, 33 minutes on the clock, and it seems to me they're just making their final stretches. Final stretch here. On the last 3 maps, I suppose. Last 3. No, sorry. They're still in Sumeru. They're still in Inazuma, actually, with 33 minutes left to spare.
Yeah, this is the Asase Shrine, which is the final landmark in Inazuma. So there are still 3 domains for Team Ringabel to have to go through here. And with 33 minutes remaining, it doesn't look like they're going to be making time that can compete with some of the top contenders we've seen so far. Whereas Team Blue Rats, they're currently in the midst of clearing out the Lost Valley. So I think they still have a chance of completing this around the 28-29 minute mark, but I don't think they're going to beat 30 minutes.
Yeah, like it's a little bit difficult looking at it right now with the progress that they're doing to beat the top teams that we see from round 1 and round 3. But I guess again the goal is for to get inside at least top eight to be able to qualify for the playoffs. And it is definitely a challenge considering that there are 64 teams involved in the qualifiers of the Genshin SEA Carnival. So it's going to be exciting to see how close all of these teams are against each other.
And it's going to be participants from all across Southeast Asia as well. So I'm honestly very curious, like whether or not players from different countries might have different preferences in terms of characters, in terms of styles. I get the feeling we'll see that more in depth once we actually get to the live playoffs, because then we'll get to actually witness things like directly in person. But for now, qualifier is still gonna be ongoing as Blue Rats will complete the next leg of their challenge, taking a picture above the Chasm's Maw.
Yeah, it's the last two points in Teyvat. So Meru region now with having to do the Dendro puzzle and into the last domain, which is the Spire of Solitary Enlightenment. In the last last point for the screenshot would be the Sanctuary of Surastana. And again, this is mostly where we see the difference in time, where it's going to be very clear between the two teams, Blue Rats, as well as we see right now as they're trying to, again, proceed fast as they can. Even though it's already not the same time as we see back with Sayonara last time, but it's still very good time as we can see so far.
What's interesting from the side of Team Blue Rats, we saw earlier with them unlocking the Dendro totems around under the umbrella shade, the domain, they actually chose not to change any characters to Dendro at all and are purely relying on the Dendrogranum to actually unlock it. So they are actually saving some time here by not swapping characters, but I wonder whether or not it would be faster to just use a Dendro Archer instead.
Yeah, that's the. I guess that's the thing, right? If you want to save time, going to the roster and change roster, or do you want to? Because I feel like we've seen so far the most common thing is having to switch to a Dendro just to make things easier. But we'll see. Maybe there is some slight difference in why they didn't want to change and want to sacrifice that ability to just directly use the Dendro characters versus the loading times.
Yeah, I actually personally think the way that Blue Rats did it is probably faster because not having the swap characters is pretty handy, and the Dendrograna is already there anyway, so it's not as if you have to run particularly far to access it. I personally would do that myself instead of swapping characters.
Yeah, it's. I think it's a on the fly decision probably to see how it goes first. So yeah, these teams. Meanwhile, here comes the swap in for the domain. Let's see how they'd go for the Blue Rats.
Yep, whereas on the side of Team Ring-a-Bell, looks like they're going to be heading over to the second last photo point, the fishing point, once again, on one of these mushrooms here in Sumeru. So they're a little bit behind the Blue Rats, but they have definitely been able to make up the difference pretty admirably. So quite excited. I think now that we are in the final leg of this challenge, it's pretty clear that Team Blue Rats are going to have the better time between these two. But again, the important part is to have the best times among all teams, not just in this 1v1 in terms of rounds we're doing.
Yeah, it is still the overall time and the fact that, there is some computations that will happen for bonus points for scoring for those who decide not to use 5-star characters in their roster. That's actually bonus points. Or if ever they decide not to use bonuses like no stamina reduction talent in their party. All right, and I think that's very, very that adds points if you decide not to use that. But so far the approach is very different. Some you see using the animal, the bonuses basically, and meanwhile some don't. So it really depends on what the teams decide to do with their competition.
Yeah, I think this is probably a good time as well to talk about exactly how the tiebreakers work, because I think we've been talking about it the entire time, but never truly clarified to the viewers. In that, firstly, obviously, all the teams will be compared in terms of the total time taken to clear out the domains. But if there is a tie in terms of time, and that has to come down to the seconds as well, then points will be given to teams that have characters with no stamina reduction. Oops, that's unfortunate for Arcadia.
Yeah.
Gonna drop off the hill there. But yeah, next it'll be characters without stamina reduction passives, no use of 5-star characters during domains, and no use of 5-star weapons during domains. Now, we haven't really talked about weapons very much for the SEA Carnival, but I feel like it's so far down in the tiebreaker list that it doesn't really matter in the end.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think so far there has been a lot of significant time differences, at least from rounds 1 to 5, and it hasn't been like there are similar times when it comes to the seconds, though it is quite a gap. So I think so far it has been very different when it comes to the timers for the teams we've seen so far.
We can see Team Blue Reds,
Last
our
stretch.
travelers, gonna be making it through that last stretch to the Sanctuary of Surastana, Arcadia specifically, going for the roof method. Unlike other teams which we saw just climb up the tree, in the end they still have to go up the tree anyway, but it does cut a little bit and provide a little bit more stamina recharge since it's not going to be climbing all the way.
Yeah, there is a bit of running platform involved, but meanwhile, Ring a Bell still making towards the main point of Sumeru City versus Blue Rats, who are basically already in the main proper and very close to the very top. In front of the sanctuary already. So these two teams actually quite close, but it seems to me that the Blue Rats are first in.
Yep, Arcadia already arrived. First one here with the Yelan and with the rest of their teammates dropping by. 26 minutes, 4 seconds, I believe, is going to be the timer for Blue Rats as they complete their run here in the Genshin Impact SEA Carnival.
Yeah, it's quite close for both of these two teams. Especially they have a similar exploration, speedrun compositions. Oh, look at Lala-chan. Lala-chan is stretching after all of that running and jumping. Oh my god. Okay, yes, actually
for the TV.
a lot. It's so cute, right? It's so cute. I did say similar, but it is just Yelan that is the similar point of interest, but it's the Anima Boy squad for Ring a Bell.
Yep, ring a bell. They're gonna be heading back up to the Sanctuary of Surastana now. I think they should be able to make a 25-minute timer here. Yep, with Kazuha Winfield, the last traveler to arrive. That's going to be the end of their challenge as well, and the end of round 5. The final round of the Genshin Impact SEA Carnival Online Qualifiers.
That was super exciting. That was just so intense because, again, it's so nice to see the variety and the decision making of the teams that we saw today. I mean, I know I was wondering, now that we've seen all rounds, like, what is the most standout pick, not out of uniqueness, but so far that seemed to be like a common factor for all of the teams that we've seen?
I think definitely the most common factor here has been Yelan, because we saw her in almost every team in almost every round. Her elemental skill is just way too valuable. She's the tall model as well, so she climbs pretty confidently, pretty comfortably. The only teams that didn't use her in their overworld lineups were the ones that went for the full tall male, the Ikemen, what did you call them? The Bishi boys.
The Bishi boys, yeah.
I do feel like based on the results, the Bishi boys did end up being the more effective strategy here, as it did seem like the faster teams just had the 3 tall man strategy.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's what they indeed had in common. Meanwhile, some of the teams resulted into the all animal boys, you know, with the stamina reduction and all of the buffs that they need to last long with these long stretches and long sprints. But yeah, I guess for me, the pick that stood out so far, I mean, I guess this is like a no-brainer that Bennett is going to be there all the time. Seeing Cho as well, it's just so much value for the team comp. So I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah, not surprised at all. But overall, I think it has been a very impressive showing from all of these teams, all of these travelers. I think it was a lot of fun watching them go through the Warriors expedition, go through the qualifiers to try and get their spot in the playoffs. Of course, only limited to that top 8. So let's have a look at what the current leaderboard for our qualifiers is looking like.
Dun, 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 dun. Oh! Fastest time, Gamer Malayu, number 1, and Sayonara second.
Wow, wait, 24 minutes? I don't remember Team Gamer Malayu going that quickly. Did I miss out on something?
24 minutes. Wow, this is very, very fast. Very fast time. 32
really
ergonomics.
Going here.
Yeah,
now,
first stage of Pura as well. 32.
Yeah, let's talk about what happened. So obviously, I think we put a lot of attention towards Team Sayonara, Team First Stage of Pura as well. I'm actually very impressed that Gamer Malayu got that fast, because I don't really remember seeing that, but considering that my memory is failing in my old age, that's not a surprising thing. As we follow up as well, we've got Team Argonomics in 4th place, Blue Rats in 5th, Not Wales, we didn't get to see this team play, but they are in 6th, same for Mango Gaming, and then Team Ringabel in 8th place. Now, we do have to highlight to all of you who are watching at home, this is not going to be our final top 8 leaderboard because there are still going to be teams that we have yet to compute, teams that have yet to compete. So this could change, but I do think that the top teams we can see here are going to be pretty comfortably going to the playoffs, as long as, of course, they have that availability, because as we can see down in the bottom, teams that will be heading to Comic Fiesta will be based on whether or not they are actually available to attend the playoffs. So again, the 8 teams that we get to see at Comic Fiesta may be pretty different.
Yeah, that's true, considering that there's still computations to be done, but this is the current leaderboard that we're seeing at the moment. I guess looking at the times, it's very, very close, especially when we look at 3rd and 4th. That's a couple of seconds, a time difference. And for 6th to 8th place, it's just a couple of seconds. They're all 34-minute finishes. So there's still a lot of seconds that are still quite close. So I'm curious to see the final leaderboard, how it's going to look like.
Yeah, but of course, for those of you who have joined us this whole time, thank you very much for being here. And if you guys want to hear more news about Genshin Impact events and join the conversation and discussion about the SEA Carnival, there is, of course, an official Genshin Impact events Discord, which you can join just by scanning the QR code on the screen right now. Make sure to join us here in the Genshin Impact Tavern.
Yeah, just bond with fellow travelers and get to know the latest events that you can join as well. Similar to the Genshin SEA Carnival, just a lot of fun.
Yeah, a lot of fun indeed. I think that's just a really good way to describe the experience that we have had here today for the online qualifiers. Again, thank you very much for all of our travelers for participating and showing us how you are true warriors here in the Warriors Expedition, and for all the travelers who are watching and enjoying the SEA Carnival from home. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your day. We hope that you will join us as well once we head off into the live playoffs, Comic Fiesta, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, on the 17th and 18th of December. With that, that's going to be the end of our online qualifiers for today. Riku, I thank you very much for joining us. I hope you had a great time. I really had a fun time casting with you. Hope to see you again, and we hope to see all of you guys again as well. Bye-bye.